Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Naruto and Anko were secretly a married couples? Subscribe if you enjoy the video. And also check the description. So let's begin the story. The autumn wind whispered through the dense forest surrounding Konoha, carrying the scent of pine and distant wood smoke. Moonlight filtered through swaying branches, casting shifting shadows across the narrow path that few knew existed. A flash of orange and black moved through the darkness, too fast for an untrained eye to catch, before materializing at the entrance of a modest wooden cabin nestled between ancient trees. Naruto Uzumaki paused, his heightened senses scanning the perimeter. The war hero's bright blue eyes, usually dancing with mischief, were now sharp and alert as he performed the ritual security check they'd established. 3 quick taps on the wooden door frame, a pause, then 2 more. Inside, floorboards creaked. "You're late," came a woman's voice, husky and laced with a familiar edge that made the corners of Naruto's mouth lift into a smile. "Had to shake off Shikamaru. He's getting suspicious." Naruto slipped inside, the door closing silently behind him. "I swear that guy notices everything." The cabin's interior was sparse but warm, illuminated by several strategically placed lanterns casting a golden glow across worn wooden surfaces. A fire crackled in the small stone hearth, and the tantalizing aroma of freshly cooked food filled the space. Anko Mitarashi stood with her back against the far wall, arms crossed over her tan overcoat. Her purple hair was down for once, framing sharp features softened by the firelight. The normally fierce Special Jonin's eyes betrayed a momentary flash of relief before defaulting to their characteristic intensity. "Suspicious how?" she asked, pushing off from the wall in one fluid motion. "Specific suspicions, or just his usual something's off face?" Naruto closed the distance between them in 3 strides, his hands finding her waist with practiced ease. "Just the usual. But he keeps asking why I've been surprisingly punctual for dawn training but late for everything else." "That's because you're exhausted from our nights together," Anko smirked, tilting her head up to meet his gaze. Her fingers traced the whisker marks on his cheeks. The great hero of the 4th Shinobi War, undone by lack of sleep. "Worth it," Naruto whispered, leaning down to capture her lips in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened with 6 days' worth of longing. When they finally broke apart, Anko let her typically guarded expression slip, revealing a soft smile reserved only for these moments. "Hungry? I made ramen." Naruto's eyes widened. "You hate cooking." "I hate a lot of things," she countered, moving toward the small kitchen area. "Doesn't mean I can't do them. Is it edible this time?" he teased, earning a dangerous glare that made him laugh. "I'm kidding. Mostly. Keep it up, and you'll be wearing it instead of eating it," Anko threatened, though the malice didn't reach her eyes. She handed him a steaming bowl. "It won't compare to Ichiraku's, but it should satisfy even your ridiculous appetite." The domesticity of the moment struck Naruto as he accepted the food. 6 months ago, he would never have imagined sharing quiet evenings in a secret cabin with the infamous Anko Mitarashi, much less being married to her. As they settled at the small table, Naruto's mind drifted back to the mission that had changed everything. 6 months earlier, rain pounded against the rocky landscape, turning the mountainous terrain into a treacherous maze of mudslides and hidden pitfalls. Blood mixed with rainwater as Naruto pressed his back against the stone outcropping, counting his remaining kunai 3, and trying to control his breathing. "This is your brilliant plan?" Anko hissed beside him, her normally spiky hair plastered to her face, a nasty gash running from her temple to her jawline. "Hide and hope they don't find us." "It's not hiding, it's regrouping," Naruto countered, wiping blood from his eyes. "And I don't hear you offering any better ideas." The mission had gone catastrophically wrong. What should have been a straightforward infiltration of one of Orochimaru's abandoned laboratories had turned into an ambush. Someone had reactivated the security systems and stationed a squad of rogue shinobi to protect whatever secrets still remained inside. Their 4-person team had been separated in the initial attack. Sai had gone to get reinforcements while Yamato provided cover. That left Naruto and Anko, the latter specifically chosen for the mission due to her knowledge of Orochimaru's facilities, pinned down by enemies who seemed to know exactly who they were fighting. "We need to draw them out," Anko said, her voice dropping to a tactical whisper. "I know these types. They're probably former test subjects, desperate and dangerous." Naruto nodded, noticing how she absent-mindedly touched the spot on her neck where the curse seal had once been. "You okay?" Her eyes flashed with annoyance. "Focus on the mission, not me." "I can do both," he replied with unexpected seriousness that made her meet his gaze. For a brief moment, something passed between them, recognition, perhaps, of the demons they both carried. Then Anko looked away, all business once more. I'll be the bait, she said. They'll be expecting your shadow clones, not my snake jutsu. When they engage, hit them from behind with your Rasengan. That's too dangerous, Naruto protested. You're already injured. Anko's laugh was sharp and bitter. What's this? The fearless Naruto Uzumaki worried about risk? Where's that knucklehead determination everyone talks about? That was before I watched too many friends die in the war, he replied quietly. The candid answer seemed to catch her off guard. Her expression softened fractionally before she shook her head. This is the job, kid. We don't all get to be indestructible heroes. Then we do it together, Naruto insisted, forming a familiar hand sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. What followed was 18 hours of relentless combat, strategy, and increasingly desperate measures. Somewhere between Anko's hidden shadow snake hands technique saving him from a poisoned blade and Naruto carrying her through a collapsing tunnel, when her leg gave out, something shifted. They moved from reluctant partners to a seamlessly coordinated team. When they finally secured the laboratory and found the scroll containing forbidden techniques that the rogues had been after, they were both at their limits. Collapsing in an empty chamber as they waited for backup, they found themselves laughing, a delirious, exhausted laugh that broke down walls neither had realized they'd built. Not bad for the Hokage's golden boy, Anko had admitted, clutching her side. You're not as terrifying as everyone says, Naruto had replied with a grin. Only mostly terrifying. Don't spread that around, she warned. I have a reputation to maintain. Your secret's safe with me. Little did either of them know how prophetic those words would become. You're thinking about the laboratory mission, Anko observed, pulling Naruto back to the present. She could read his expressions with uncanny accuracy now. Yeah, he admitted, setting down his empty bowl. Still can't believe that's what it took for you to notice me. Notice you? Anko snorted. The entire village notices you. You're practically blinding in that orange getup. You know what I mean, Naruto said, reaching across the table to take her hand. His thumb traced over the simple band on her ring finger, visible only in these private moments. Notice me as more than just the Nine-Tails kid or the war hero. Anko's fingers intertwined with his. You were impossible to ignore once I realized there was more beneath all that optimistic bluster. Though I fought it like hell. I remember, Naruto laughed. You threatened to feed me to your snakes at least 6 times. Should have done it, she said with mock regret. Would have saved us both a lot of trouble. 3 months had passed since their impulsive wedding, conducted in secret with only Kakashi present as both Hokage and witness. The memory still brought a rush of warmth to Naruto's chest. Anko in a simple dark purple dress rather than her usual attire, her typical bravado momentarily set aside as she spoke vows in a voice so quiet he had to lean in to hear. Any regrets? He asked, studying her face in the flickering light. Anko's expression grew serious. Only the secrecy. But we both know it's necessary. She was right. Their marriage remained hidden for compelling reasons, each more complicated than the last. Naruto's growing list of enemies made anyone close to him a potential target, and as Kakashi's chosen successor for the position of Hokage, he had to be particularly careful. Anko's history with Orochimaru had never fully stopped haunting her, making her a political liability in the eyes of the village elders. Then there was the matter of their age difference, and drastically different personalities. Factors that would invite unwanted scrutiny and judgment. Kakashi asked about you today, Naruto mentioned, moving to the worn sofa near the fire. Said he hasn't seen you since the strategy meeting last week. Anko joined him, curling her legs beneath her in a rare display of relaxation. The fewer interactions we have in public, the better. Besides, I've been busy with the ANBU training program. I miss you during the day, Naruto admitted, his arms sliding around her shoulders. Getting soft on me, Uzumaki? She teased, but nestled closer against him. Always have been. You're the tough one. Anko's laugh was soft and genuine, so different from the sharp, intimidating sound she used in public. One of us has to be. Your endless optimism needs my realism to balance it out. Is that what we're calling your cynicism now? Realism? She elbowed him playfully. Reality isn't always sunshine and talk no jutsu, husband. The words still sent a thrill through him. Husband. For someone who had grown up alone, craving connection and acknowledgement, being someone's husband, being Anko's husband, felt like a miracle. Maybe not, he conceded. But it's not always as dark as you paint it either, wife. They fell into comfortable silence, watching the fire dance in the hearth. These stolen nights were becoming the foundation of their relationship. Quiet conversations, shared meals, and the simple pleasure of existing together away from watchful eyes. Eventually, Anko shifted, her expression growing more somber. I have news. Naruto recognized her tone immediately. Mission? She nodded. Intelligence gathering in the land of water. Potentially connected to those dissidents we've been tracking. How long? 2 weeks, minimum. Her eyes met his, regret evident despite her matter-of-fact delivery. I leave tomorrow at dawn. Naruto absorbed this information, fighting his instinctive desire to protest. They both knew their duties as shinobi sometimes required separation. It was part of the life they'd chosen. I just got back from my mission yesterday, he said, unable to keep the disappointment from his voice. I know. Bad timing. Anko reached up to touch his face, her typically harsh features softening. I tried to delay it, but it's important, Naruto finished for her. He managed a smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. I understand. I have that diplomatic assignment to the Sand Village coming up anyway. Anko's fingers traced the line of his jaw. Look at us, being responsible adults. Terrible, isn't it? He joked, turning to press a kiss to her palm. Absolutely dreadful. The levity couldn't completely dispel the reality of their impending separation, but it helped. They'd faced worse, much worse, and would do so again. Such was the life of shinobi, even those who happened to be secretly married. As the night deepened around their hidden sanctuary, they made the most of their remaining hours together. Words gave way to touches, laughter to sighs, until eventually they lay tangled together in the bed tucked into the cabin's small loft. Anko's head rested on Naruto's chest, her breathing deep and even. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder, memorizing the contours as if he hadn't already committed every inch of her to memory. I'll be careful, she murmured, evidently sensing his unspoken concern. You better be, he replied, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. I have plans for us. She propped herself up on one elbow, her hair falling in a purple curtain around her face. Plans? That sounds suspiciously like you're thinking ahead. The Naruto I met years ago only planned as far as his next meal. People change, he said with a grin. Besides, some of us are being groomed for leadership positions. Don't remind me, Anko groaned. I'm sleeping with the future Hokage. How scandalous. Married to, Naruto corrected, suddenly serious. Not just sleeping with. Something vulnerable flashed in Anko's eyes, a rare glimpse beneath her carefully constructed walls. Yes, she agreed softly. Married to. Morning would come too soon, bringing with it responsibilities and separation. Their paths would diverge as they stepped back into their public personas. Naruto the cheerful hero and future leader. Anko the intimidating special jonin with a razor-sharp tongue and dangerous reputation. For 2 weeks, they would exist in separate orbits, connected only by memories and the promise of reunion. But for now, in the warm cocoon of their secret cabin, they were simply husband and wife, finding in each other the acceptance and understanding that had eluded them both for so long. The night enfolded them like a protective cloak, keeping their unlikely love safe from a world not yet ready to witness it. Dawn exploded across Konoha in a riot of crimson and gold, painting the Hokage mountain faces in amber light that made the stones seem almost alive. The village stirred beneath this celestial display, vendors arranging produce, shinobi reporting for duty, and children racing to the academy with weapons pouches slapping against their thighs. Naruto bounded across the rooftops, his orange and black jacket aflame against the azure sky. 3 shadow clones flanked him, each practicing different hand signs as they leapt from tile to timber. To anyone watching, it was simply Naruto being Naruto, training at full throttle, grinning like a madman, golden hair whipping in the wind. No one would guess he'd barely slept, that beneath his sunshine smile lurked the ache of Anko's pre-dawn departure. No one would see how his fingers had lingered on the empty space beside him in their hidden cabin, still warm from her body. Hey! Naruto! Sakura's voice cut through his thoughts. She stood on a balcony below, medical scrolls tucked under one arm, her pink hair caught in the morning breeze. Sakura-chan. Naruto dismissed his clones with a puff of smoke and dropped to land beside her with cat-like grace. You're up early. Hospital rotation, she explained, green eyes narrowing as they swept over his face. You look tired. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck, deploying his most convincing sheepish grin. Ah yeah. Been working on this new jutsu that's driving me crazy. Kept me up half the night. Her expression softened, but Naruto didn't miss the flicker of suspicion that crossed her features. Sakura knew him too well, had known him since they were children dreaming of becoming strong enough to matter. You've been different lately, she said, shifting her weight to one hip. More I don't know. Reserved? Distracted? Naruto's heart hammered against his ribs. He forced a laugh that sounded hollow even to his own ears. Me? Reserved? Have you met me? A cherry blossom petal spiraled down between them, landing on Sakura's shoulder. She brushed it away, her gaze never leaving his face. I've known you for years, Naruto. something's changed. The intensity of her scrutiny made him swallow hard. This was the danger of close friends. They noticed the subtle shifts, the tiny fractures in carefully constructed facades. Just growing up, I guess, he deflected, then quickly redirected. How's that new healing technique coming along? The one you were telling me about last week? Sakura's eyes lit up despite herself. Actually, I had a breakthrough yesterday. I managed to regenerate damaged chakra pathways in a patient who, Naruto. A voice called from the street below. Shikamaru stood with his hands shoved in his pockets, expression inscrutable beneath his spiky ponytail. Kakashi needs us. Now, saved by the summons. Naruto flashed an apologetic smile at Sakura. Duty calls. Tell me about it later? She nodded, but her eyes held unfinished questions. Later then, Naruto vaulted over the railing, landing beside Shikamaru with a soft thud. They fell into step together, moving through streets now buzzing with morning activity. What's the emergency? Naruto asked, waving at Tsuchi as they passed Ichiraku Ramen. Shikamaru's voice dropped low enough that only Naruto could hear. Intelligence received reports of movement, former Akatsuki sympathizers regrouping in the northern territories. I slid down Naruto's spine. Confirmed? Enough to warrant concern. Shikamaru's dark eyes slid sideways, studying Naruto's reaction. They're specifically targeting those connected to you. The sun suddenly felt too bright, the street too crowded. Naruto's thoughts flashed to Anko, already en route to the land of water, unaware of this new threat. His fingers itched to form a shadow clone, to send it racing after her with a warning, but such an action would raise immediate questions. Who's on the intel team? He asked instead, struggling to keep his voice neutral. Ibiki's heading it, with support from Special Jonin. Shikamaru paused fractionally, including Anko Midarashi, once she returns from her current assignment. Naruto's pulse stuttered at her name, spoken so casually in the open air. He managed a non-committal grunt that he hoped sounded natural. Something wrong? Shikamaru pressed, eyes sharp as kunai. No, just thinking about strategies. Naruto forced himself back into character, pumping his fist. If these Akatsuki wannabes think they can threaten my precious people, they've got another thing coming. Shikamaru's lips twitched. That's more like it. You've been weirdly subdued lately. Not you too, Naruto groaned. Sakura just said the same thing. What can I say? It's troublesome being observant. They approached the Hokage Tower, its cylindrical form rising above the surrounding buildings. By the way, you've had 3 ANBU shadows all morning. Kakashi's worried. Naruto stumbled slightly, recovering with a forced chuckle. Geez, can't a guy have privacy anymore? Not when you're the village hero and future Hokage, Shikamaru replied dryly. Get used to it. The Hokage Tower hummed with activity, shinobi delivering reports, messengers rushing between departments, bureaucrats shuffling papers. Naruto and Shikamaru navigated the controlled chaos with practiced ease, climbing stairs and nodding to colleagues until they reached Kakashi's office. They found the 6th Hokage standing at the window, his silver hair catching the light, his masked face turned toward the mountain bearing his likeness. Took you long enough, Kakashi said without turning around. Blame Naruto, Shikamaru drawled. I found him chatting up Sakura. Some things never change, Kakashi sighed, finally facing them. His visible eye crinkled with what might have been a smile. What's the situation? Naruto asked, eager to get to business. Kakashi gestured to a map spread across his desk, marked with red pins in various locations. These are confirmed sightings of individuals connected to the remnants of Akatsuki. They're not the heavy hitters you faced during the war, more like devotees, keeping the ideology alive. Dangerous? Shikamaru asked, already analyzing the pattern of pins. Very, Kakashi confirmed. What they lack in pure power, they make up for in fanaticism, and they've specifically mentioned targeting those close to Naruto as a means of drawing him out. The implication hung in the air. Naruto's status as a war hero and Jinchuriki made him difficult to attack directly. His friends and loved ones, however, presented more vulnerable targets. The door behind them slid open with a snap, and Naruto's body reacted before his mind could process. Muscles tensing, senses heightening, heart leaping. Anko stood in the doorway. Her purple hair was pulled back in its usual spiky ponytail. Tan overcoat open over mesh armor, eyes sharp and predatory. Nothing in her stance or expression suggested anything beyond professional intensity. Nothing except the microscopic widening of her pupils when they landed on Naruto. You summoned me, Lord Hokage? Her voice was all business, carrying no trace of the soft murmurs she'd pressed against Naruto's skin mere hours ago. Anko, Kakashi acknowledged. I thought you were already en route to the land of water. She crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe with practiced nonchalance. Departure delayed. Storm system moving in. I leave in 2 hours instead. Perfect timing then. We have new intelligence that may impact your mission. Kakashi waved her into the room. Naruto kept his face carefully neutral as she approached, fighting every instinct that screamed to reach for her, to touch her, to confirm she was real and not some phantom conjured by his lonely mind. Instead, he gave a casual nod, as he would to any fellow shinobi. "Sup, Anko-sensei," he said, using the honorific he hadn't used in private for months. Her eyes flicked to his, held for precisely the right amount of time. Not too long, not too short, before she smirked. "Still wearing that ridiculous orange, I see. How you've survived this long as a ninja is beyond me." The barb was perfect. Exactly what everyone would expect from the sharp-tongued special jonin. No one would detect the affection beneath it. The inside joke it referenced from their third date, when she tried to convince him to wear literally any other color. "It's my signature," Naruto protested with exaggerated indignation, playing his part flawlessly. Shikamaru rolled his eyes. "Can we focus? Some of us have other duties waiting." "Right," Kakashi tapped the map. "Anko, your mission parameters have expanded. While gathering intelligence on Water Country's dissidents, we need you to also investigate potential connections to these Akatsuki sympathizers. They may be forming alliances with other anti-establishment groups." Anko's expression sharpened. "All business. Any specific identifiers I should look for?" "They've adopted a variation of the red cloud insignia. Black clouds on red bands worn on the wrist." Kakashi handed her a small scroll. "Full details here. Memorize and destroy." She nodded, tucking the scroll into her coat. Naruto studied the floor, hyper-aware of her every movement, the subtle shift of her weight from one foot to another, the almost imperceptible tap of her finger against her thigh. "Their private signal for I need to speak with you." But there would be no chance. Not here, not now, not with Shikamaru's analytical mind cataloging every interaction and Kakashi's knowing eye watching from behind his mask. "If that's all?" Anko raised an eyebrow at Kakashi. "One more thing," the Hokage said. "Given the elevated threat level, travel with additional caution. These zealots are unpredictable." Something dark flickered across Anko's features. "I can handle fanatics. I trained under one, remember?" The reference to Orochimaru hung in the air like poison mist. Naruto fought the urge to defend her, to point out how unfair it was that her former sensei's shadow still colored how others perceived her, a struggle she'd confided during their nights together. "No one doubts your capabilities," Kakashi said smoothly. "Just stay alert." Anko gave a mock salute, turned on her heel, and strode toward the door. She passed within inches of Naruto, close enough that he caught the faint scent of forest and spice that clung to her skin. Not a touch. Not a glance. Nothing that would betray them. "Oh, and Naruto," she called over her shoulder, hand on the doorframe, "try not to get yourself killed while I'm gone. It would be a waste after all the work we put into training you." The reference to their joint mission 6 months ago would seem natural to anyone listening. Only Naruto caught the double meaning, the genuine concern beneath the flippant tone. "You too, Anko-sensei," he replied, infusing the words with just enough sincerity to communicate his true feelings without raising suspicion. "Come back safe." She was gone in a swirl of tan coat and purpose, leaving Naruto feeling as though a physical piece of himself had departed with her. Now, Kakashi continued, unaware of, or perhaps deliberately ignoring, the emotional undercurrents swirling through his office. "About your protection detail, Naruto." The ANBU training grounds sprawled across a secluded section of forest, hidden behind complex genjutsu barriers and patrolled by elite guards. Few ordinary citizens knew of its existence. Fewer still had ever witnessed the training that occurred within its boundaries. Anko stood in the center of a circular clearing, surrounded by 12 masked figures in standard ANBU attire. Her coat was discarded on a nearby stump, leaving her in mesh armor that revealed the toned muscles of a veteran fighter. Again she barked, hands on hips. "And this time, don't telegraph your attacks. I could read your movements before you even committed to them." The ANBU recruits, all accomplished jonin selected for specialized training, nodded silently and scattered into the trees. Anko closed her eyes, centering herself. This was where she excelled, in the raw, unfiltered realm of combat training, where her brutal honesty and first-hand knowledge of the darkest shinobi arts made her an invaluable instructor. The first attack came from above, silent, swift, deadly. Without opening her eyes, Anko pivoted, her hand shooting up to catch the descending tanto by its blade. Blood trickled between her fingers as she gripped the metal, using the attacker's momentum to flip them over her shoulder. "Better," she acknowledged, eyes snapping open as she released the blade. But your breathing hitched before you committed. The masked recruit bowed respectfully and retreated. 3 more attacked simultaneously. 1 from behind, 2 from the sides. Anko dropped into a crouch, hands flashing through signs. Hidden shadow snake hands. Serpents erupted from her sleeves, whipping outward to ensnare her attackers. The ANBU on the left substituted with a log at the last second, avoiding capture, while the other 2 found themselves immobilized. Predictable defense, came a voice as the 3rd recruit reappeared, launching a barrage of Saban needles. Anko grinned, a feral, predatory expression. Was it? The needles passed through her form, which dissolved into a writhing mass of snakes that scattered across the ground. The real Anko emerged from the earth behind the recruit, kunai pressed to their throat. Lesson 1, she hissed into the recruit's ear. Assume nothing. The training continued for another hour, brutal, efficient, and uncompromising. Anko drove the ANBU recruits to their limits and beyond, exploiting weaknesses, praising strengths, and demanding excellence with every breath. None would guess that behind her ferocious focus lurked thoughts of Naruto, of dangers targeting those he loved, of the magnetic pull she'd felt in Kakashi's office when they'd stood mere feet apart, unable to acknowledge what they truly meant to each other. As the session concluded, a cloaked figure appeared at the edge of the clearing. Even with the mask, Anko recognized Ibiki Marino's imposing silhouette. A word Mitarashi, he called, voice gruff. She dismissed the exhausted recruits with a wave. Same time tomorrow. Bring better strategies or don't bother showing up. When the clearing emptied, Anko retrieved her coat and approached Ibiki, guard immediately raised. The head of Konoha's torture and interrogation force rarely sought people out personally unless something significant had occurred. Problem with my mission? She asked without preamble. Ibiki studied her through the eye holes of his mask. No. But there is something you should know before you depart. He handed her a small, sealed envelope. Intelligence intercepted this message. It concerns a matter that may be personally relevant. Alarm bells rang in Anko's mind. She accepted the envelope with steady fingers that belied the sudden racing of her heart. Explain. Open it, Ibiki said simply. She broke the seal and withdrew a single slip of paper. The message was short, written in a cipher she recognized as belonging to an underground information network. The fox grows careless. The snake's mate leaves trails in moonlight. Shadows are watching. Anko's blood ran cold, but her face remained impassive. Years of training under Orochimaru had taught her to hide reactions, to bury fear beneath layers of calculated response. What is this supposed to mean to me? She asked, voice deliberately bored. Ibiki's gaze was penetrating, even through the mask. That's what I was hoping you might tell me. The reference to snakes naturally led us to consider your former associations. Anko crumpled the paper in her fist. I haven't been Orochimaru's student for years. Whatever this is, it's not about me. And the fox reference? Clearly pointing to Naruto. Obviously, she snapped. He's a target. We all know this. Ibiki was silent for a long moment. Then, the message was intercepted en route to a known Akatsuki sympathizer. It originated from within Konoha. The implication hung between them like a blade. A traitor. Someone watching. Someone who had seen something. I'll keep my eyes open during the mission, Anko said, slipping the crumpled message into her pocket. If I hear anything about Akatsuki targeting Naruto, you'll be the first to know. Ibiki nodded slowly. Your departure has been moved forward. Leave within the hour. The storm warning was a false report, possibly designed to delay you. Anko's mind raced. No chance to warn Naruto, to tell him they might be compromised. No opportunity to say a proper goodbye or establish a contingency plan. Understood, she said curtly. I'll leave immediately. As she turned to go, Ibiki called after her, Anko. Be careful who you trust. Even within Konoha's walls. She didn't look back, merely raised a hand in acknowledgement before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Naruto sat atop the 3rd Hokage's stone head, legs dangling over the edge as the afternoon sun bathed Konoha in golden light. From this height, the village resembled a living organism, streets like veins, buildings like cells, people like blood flowing between them. He came here often to think, to escape the constant attention his status attracted. Today, his thoughts were a tangled web of concerns. Anko's mission, the Akatsuki threat, Sakura's suspicions, Shikamaru's observations. Thought I'd find you here, came a lazy drawl. Naruto didn't need to turn to know Shikamaru had joined him. Am I that predictable? To those who pay attention. Shikamaru settled beside him, leaning back on his hands to gaze at the clouds drifting overhead. So who is she? The question struck like a physical blow. Naruto fought to keep his expression neutral, turning to Shikamaru with practiced confusion. Huh? Who's who? Shikamaru sighed, the sound equal parts exasperation and amusement. Troublesome as always. The woman you're seeing, obviously. For a heart-stopping moment, Naruto thought they'd been discovered. Then logic reasserted itself. Shikamaru suspected a relationship, but not specifically with Anko. He couldn't know. Not yet. Naruto forced a laugh. What makes you think I'm seeing anyone? You disappear for hours without explanation. You're distracted during strategy meetings. You've stopped hanging around Ichiraku until closing. Shikamaru ticked off each point on his fingers. And you've been unnaturally punctual for morning sessions, which suggests you're sleeping somewhere with a better alarm system than your apartment. Damn Shikamaru and his analytical mind. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck, buying time to formulate a response that would satisfy without revealing too much. It's complicated, he finally said. Always is, Shikamaru agreed, mercifully not pressing further. Just be careful. With these Akatsuki remnants targeting your connections, anyone close to you is in danger. Guilt twisted in Naruto's stomach. His secret marriage wasn't just about privacy or political complications anymore. It was about Anko's safety. If their relationship became public knowledge, she would immediately become the primary target for anyone seeking to hurt him. I'm always careful, Naruto replied, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. Careful meant distant. Careful meant secret. Careful meant watching his wife walk into danger without acknowledging what she truly meant to him. Shikamaru stood, brushing dust from his pants. Meeting in 20 minutes. Don't be late. He paused, then added, and Naruto? Whoever she is, I hope she's worth the risk. After Shikamaru departed, Naruto remained on the mountain, watching shadows lengthen across the village as afternoon faded toward evening. The weight of his dual existence pressed down on him. Naruto the hero, always smiling, always reliable, and Naruto the husband, aching for a woman he couldn't publicly claim, fearing for her safety with every breath. A small messenger hawk circled twice overhead before landing beside him, extending its leg to reveal a tiny scroll case. Naruto frowned. He wasn't expecting any communications, but retrieved the message. The scroll contained a single line of text, the handwriting unfamiliar. The fox should guard his heart. The snake's mate has been marked. Ice flooded Naruto's veins as the implications crashed over him. Someone knew. Someone had connected him to Anko. And worse, someone had identified her as a weakness to exploit. The paper crumpled in his suddenly trembling hand. Anko was already gone, unreachable, heading into potential danger without knowing she'd been specifically targeted. For the first time since their secret marriage began, Naruto faced the terrifying possibility that the price of their hidden love might be higher than either of them had imagined. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting Konoha into shadow. Somewhere to the east, Anko moved through darkening forests, unaware that their carefully constructed secret had begun to unravel. Naruto stood, resolution hardening his features as he tucked the threatening message into his pocket. He would maintain appearances, attend the meeting, smile when appropriate, plan strategies with Kakashi and the others. He would play his role perfectly, but beneath the facade, a storm was brewing. If anyone dared harm Anko, they would discover why even gods had feared the nine-tailed fox. Mist clung to the marshlands of the land of water like phantom breath, transforming the landscape into something otherworldly and treacherous. Anko crouched on a gnarled tree branch, her body perfectly still save for the slow, controlled rhythm of her breathing. Rain pelted her exposed skin, plastering purple hair to her forehead and neck, but she remained motionless, a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Below, 4 figures moved through the swamp, their black cloaks adorned with the telltale red bands around their wrists. Akatsuki sympathizers, just as intelligence had suspected. Anko's eyes narrowed as she tracked their movements, memorizing faces, cataloging weapons. They were heading toward an abandoned village rumored to house one of the water country's dissident groups. Classic coalition building. Terrorists finding common ground with local rebels. Her hand drifted unconsciously to her neck, fingers brushing the spot where Orochimaru's curse seal had once burned like liquid fire against her skin. The mark was gone now, but phantom pain still pulsed beneath the surface sometimes, especially when memories threatened to overwhelm her. Like now, a flash of yellow eyes in her mind. A sinister chuckle echoing through the corridors of her consciousness. You disappoint me, Anko. So much potential wasted. She gritted her teeth, forcing the voice back into the darkness where it belonged. 6 days into her mission, and the nightmares had returned with a vengeance. Vivid, horrifying dreams of laboratories filled with screaming test subjects, of Orochimaru's cold hands guiding hers through forbidden jutsu, of the burning agony when he'd marked her as his disciple. Focus. The mission. Now, Anko slipped a kunai from her holster and carved a small, inconspicuous symbol into the tree bark. A marker for Konoha trackers should anything happen to her. Then, with a final glance at the retreating figures, she melted into the shadows to follow. 6 months earlier, Orochimaru's abandoned laboratory, blood and rain. The stench of chemicals and decay. Naruto's shadow clones popping into smoke as they absorbed the brunt of an explosive trap, buying Anko precious seconds to spring backward to safety. The laboratory complex sprawled beneath a mountain like a cancerous growth, all twisted metal and stained concrete. Sai and Yamato had been separated from them during the initial ambush, leaving Naruto and Anko to penetrate deeper into the compound alone. This way, Anko hissed, sensing rather than seeing the path forward. Orochimaru's laboratories shared certain design elements, signatures she could recognize even in the near darkness. There should be a secondary entrance through the ventilation system. Naruto followed without question, trusting her expertise despite the tension crackling between them. She'd been harsh with him since the mission began, her words cutting, her demeanor cold. It was how she coped with returning to these places, these twisted monuments to her former master's madness. They found the vent shaft half hidden behind a jutting rock formation. Anko ripped away the grate with a serpentine extension of her arm, the snakes that were her signature jutsu coiling back into her sleeve once the task was complete. Ladies first, Naruto offered with an attempt at humor that fell flat in the oppressive atmosphere. Anko didn't respond, simply slithered into the dark opening with practiced ease. The metallic taste of fear coated her tongue as they crawled through the claustrophobic passage, memories assaulting her with each meter gained. Orochimaru's hand on her shoulder, deceptively gentle. Watch carefully, Anko. This is how we advance human potential. This is how we transcend limitations. A subject strapped to a laboratory table, body convulsing as experimental drugs coursed through their veins. Her own voice, younger but already hardened. Is this necessary, Orochimaru-sensei? His smile, like a knife cutting through silk. Everything I do is necessary. A hand touched her ankle, jolting her back to the present. Naruto's voice, low and concerned. Anko-sensei, you okay? You stopped moving. She swallowed the acrid taste in her mouth. Fine. Just getting my bearings. They emerged into a dimly lit corridor lined with sealed doors. Emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie red glow that made the shadows dance like living things. The air hung heavy with disuse and chemical preservatives. What exactly are we looking for? Naruto whispered, Kunai already in hand. Anko's eyes scanned the numbered doors. Research notes. Specifically on cellular regeneration. Intelligence believes Orochimaru was developing techniques that. A scream split the air, raw, agonized, human. Someone's still alive down here, Naruto breathed, already moving toward the sound. Anko grabbed his arm, her grip like iron. Wait. It could be a trap. Blue eyes met hers, blazing with that Uzumaki determination that both infuriated and fascinated her. If someone's being tortured, we can't just ignore it. This isn't a rescue mission, she reminded him, voice hard. We have specific objectives. Then I'll complete the objective after I help them, Naruto countered, pulling away from her grip. That's my ninja way. Something in his unwavering conviction broke through Anko's carefully constructed walls, just a hairline crack, but enough to let in a sliver of light. Before she could formulate a response, another scream echoed through the corridor, followed by the unmistakable sound of combat. Fine, she snapped, falling into step beside him. But if this gets us killed, I'm haunting your ass for eternity. A ghost of a smile flickered across Naruto's face. Deal. They raced toward the source of the disturbance, weapons drawn, chakra humming just beneath their skin. The scene that greeted them when they burst through a set of heavy double doors froze them both in their tracks. A massive chamber spread before them, filled with glass tanks containing cloudy liquid and indistinct shapes. In the center, a medical table lay overturned, restraints dangling uselessly from its sides. And engaged in brutal combat, a figure in tattered medical scrubs against 3 masked assailants. The test subject, Anko realized aloud. It's fighting back. Naruto was already moving, hands forming his signature sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. A dozen Narutos filled the room, diving into the fray with characteristic abandon. Anko cursed under her breath and followed, snakes erupting from her sleeves to entangle the nearest attacker. In the chaos that followed, something unexpected happened. As Anko dispatched one opponent and pivoted to face the next, she found Naruto at her back, covering her blind spot without being asked. When a barrage of poisoned Saban needles flew toward him, her snakes intercepted them automatically, as if her body recognized him as someone worth protecting. They moved together with an uncanny synchronicity, anticipating each other's movements, complementing each other's styles. His boundless energy and creativity balanced her precise, lethal techniques. His optimism tempered her cynicism. Her experience guided his raw power. When the last attacker fell, they stood amid the wreckage, breathing hard, staring at each other with new eyes. "You fight good," Naruto panted, blood trickling from a cut above his eyebrow. Anko's lips twitched in what might have been the beginning of a smile. "You're not completely useless yourself." The escape test subject had collapsed during the fight, unconscious but alive. As Naruto checked their pulse, Anko's gaze drifted to a computer terminal still glowing in the corner of the room. "The research data," she murmured, moving toward it. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, bypassing security measures she recognized from her time with Orochimaru. Files flickered across the screen, grotesque experiments, failed subjects, successful mutations. And then, a folder labeled simply, Curseal Variants. Anko's breath caught in her throat. Her hand froze above the keyboard. "Hey, they're stable, but we should get them medical attention soon," Naruto called, then noticed her rigid posture. "Anko-sensei? What is it?" She couldn't answer, couldn't tear her eyes from the screen. Images flashed before her, diagrams of the Curseal, notes on its effects, lists of test subjects. Most marked deceased. A hand settled on her shoulder, warm and solid. Naruto, standing beside her, silent for once. Not pushing, not questioning. Just present. "I thought I was the only one who survived it," she whispered, voice raw. The Curseal. His favorite technique. Naruto's grip tightened slightly, anchoring her to the present. "You don't have to look at this." "Yes. I do." Her fingers resumed typing, copying files to a portable drive. "This could help others. People like me. People like Sasuke." As data transferred, she felt something shift inside her. Tectonic plates of identity grinding against each other, creating something new from the pressure. She'd spent years running from Orochimaru's shadow, defining herself by what she wasn't, by what she'd escaped. But standing there, with Naruto's steadying presence beside her, she glimpsed another possibility. Using her knowledge of horror to create healing, transforming trauma into protection for others. When the download completed, she pocketed the drive and turned to face Naruto. His expression held no pity, no disgust, only a quiet respect that made her throat tighten unexpectedly. "Let's get out of this hellhole," she said, voice steadier than she felt. He nodded, already moving to lift the unconscious test subject. "And Anko-sensei? What?" His eyes met hers, startlingly perceptive. "You're nothing like him. Never have been." The words struck with the precision of a perfect kunai throw, finding the exact center of the target she'd hidden from everyone, including herself. The fear that had haunted her for years, that Orochimaru's darkness lived on in her, waiting to emerge. She blinked rapidly, blaming the sting in her eyes on the acrid laboratory air. "Let's move. We've got a mission to complete." But as they fought their way back through enemy forces, she felt lighter somehow. As if naming the fear had diminished its power, if only slightly. And each time Naruto appeared at her side, anticipating her needs in battle with an intuition that defied his reputation for brashness, the weight lessened further. By the time they finally secured the laboratory and waited for backup, exhausted and blood-spattered but victorious, Anko found herself looking at Naruto Uzumaki with new eyes, seeing beyond the hyperactive hero to the man beneath. A man with unexpected depths and an uncanny ability to see through the barriers she'd spent a lifetime constructing. It terrified her. It intrigued her. It changed everything. The memory dissolved as Anko slipped through the undergrowth of the land of water's marshlands, tracking the Akatsuki sympathizers with single-minded focus. Night had fallen, transforming the mist into an impenetrable shroud that concealed her movements as she closed in on their makeshift camp. 4 figures huddled around a small, smokeless fire, speaking in hushed tones. Anko edged closer, straining to catch their words. "Confirm the target will be vulnerable during transport," one was saying, voice barely audible above the constant drip of water from overhanging branches. "And you're certain this will draw him out? The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki?" another asked. Anko's blood froze. They were planning something against Naruto. "Our source says he's become attached. The connection is recent but significant. When she's taken, he'll come." The speaker leaned forward, face momentarily illuminated by firelight, gaunt, scarred, with eyes that burned with fanatical intensity. "And when he does, we'll be waiting." A hollow pit formed in Anko's stomach. Were they referring to her? Had their secret been compromised? Or was it someone else in Naruto's life? Sakura, perhaps, or Hinata? She needed more information, but caution dictated observation over confrontation. 4 against 1 were acceptable odds under normal circumstances. But she couldn't risk being captured when intelligence was so crucial. A twig snapped somewhere to her left, a sound so faint it might have been imagined. Anko went perfectly still, senses straining into the darkness. There. A flicker of movement. A fifth presence circling the camp? Not with the group, but watching them. Another player in this deadly game. As if sensing her attention, the figure paused, head turning slightly in her direction. For the briefest moment, firelight reflected off a pair of glasses, creating twin circles of light in the darkness. Recognition hit her like a physical blow. That silhouette. That posture. She knew it intimately from years of standing in its shadow. Kabuto Yakushi. Orochimaru's right hand. The man who had assisted in countless horrific experiments, including those performed on her. Before she could process this development, a sharp pain exploded behind her eyes, dropping her to her knees. Her vision blurred, the world spinning in nauseating circles as her hand flew to her neck. The curse seal was gone, had been for years, but in its place, a burning sensation spread like wildfire beneath her skin. Not the seal itself, but something new, something that triggered the same pathways in her brain, the same receptors in her nervous system. Through the haze of agony, Anko saw Kabuto turn fully in her direction, a smile spreading across his face. His lips moved, forming words she couldn't hear but somehow understood. Found you, Anko. Did you think he'd forget his favorite disciple? She fought against the darkness gathering at the edges of her consciousness, drawing on years of training and stubborn will. Whatever toxin or jutsu he deployed was designed specifically for her unique physiology, altered by Orochimaru's experiments. The last thing she saw before collapsing was Kabuto melting into the mist, his mission apparently complete. Not to capture her, but to confirm her presence, to activate whatever dormant agent had been waiting in her system, to send a message. Orochimaru hasn't forgotten you. And neither have I. Miles away in Konoha, Naruto jolted awake, a scream dying in his throat as phantom pain seared across his chest. Sweat-soaked sheets tangled around his legs as he gasped for breath, the nightmare's images still vivid behind his eyes. Anko, collapsing in a dark forest. Anko, surrounded by enemies. Anko, calling his name as shadows swallowed her whole. He pressed his palms against his eyes, trying to banish the visions. Just a dream. Just anxiety manifesting in his subconscious. Not a premonition, but the hollow feeling in his chest refused to dissipate, and the bond he shared with Kurama stirred uneasily within him. Something's wrong, he whispered to the empty room. Moonlight painted silver patterns across the floor of his apartment. Not the cabin he shared with Anko, but his official residence in the village center. Maintaining appearances meant sleeping here most nights, especially with her away on mission. The silence echoed around him, emphasizing her absence. No sharp-witted commentary on his nightmares. No warm body curled against his side. No fingers tracing the whisker marks on his cheeks with surprising tenderness. Naruto rose, moving to the window to gaze at the sleeping village. From this vantage point, he could see the Hokage Tower, a hulking shadow against the star-scattered sky. If anyone might know something about Anko's mission status, it would be Kakashi. But rushing to the Hokage with nothing but a bad dream and a feeling would raise questions he couldn't afford to answer. His fingers brushed against the carved wooden frame on his bedside table, the only physical evidence of their relationship he kept in his apartment. To anyone else, it appeared to contain a photo of his genin team, but a hidden compartment held something far more precious. A small, candid photo of Anko, caught in a rare moment of unguarded laughter. The picture calmed him somewhat, grounding him in reality. Anko was the strongest, most resourceful kunoichi he knew. She'd survived Orochimaru's training, the Forest of Death, the Fourth Shinobi War. She'd endured the curse seal's torment and emerged intact. Whatever danger she faced, she would overcome it. Still, sleep eluded him for the remainder of the night. As dawn broke over Konoha, Naruto found himself on the training grounds, pushing his body to its limits in an attempt to exhaust the anxiety that still thrummed through his veins. "You're here early," observed a quiet voice. Naruto paused, a Rasengan dissolving in his palm as he turned to find Sakura watching him from the edge of the clearing. Her medical kit hung at her side, suggesting she'd been on hospital duty. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted, wiping sweat from his brow. She approached, professional eyes assessing him with clinical precision. "Nightmares again?" He nodded, not trusting himself to elaborate. Sakura's expression softened. "About the war? Something like that." The lie tasted bitter, but telling the truth was impossible. She hesitated, then reached into her kit and extracted a small vial. "Herbal sedative. Mild enough that it won't interfere with your reflexes, but it should help with the dreams." Naruto accepted it with a grateful smile. "Thanks, Sakura-chan. Want to talk about it?" she offered, settling onto a fallen log at the clearing's edge. "Sometimes that helps more than medicine." For a moment, The temptation to confide in her nearly overwhelmed him. Sakura was one of his oldest friends, a teammate who had seen him at his best and worst. If anyone might understand his relationship with Anko, it might be her. But the risk was too great. Not just to himself, but to Anko. To the future they were carefully building together. It's nothing specific, he said instead. Just ghosts, you know? She nodded, apparently satisfied with his answer. We all have them. After everything we've seen, it would be strange if we didn't. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the rising sun paint the sky in watercolor hues of pink and gold. Naruto found himself wondering what Anko was seeing at that moment. What sky stretched above her, what dangers lurked in her path. There's a meeting later, Sakura said eventually, breaking into his thoughts. Intelligence Division Update. Kakashi wants all Jonin and Special Jonin to attend. Naruto's pulse quickened. About the Akatsuki sympathizers? Among other things. She stood, brushing leaves from her skirt. There's been movement from some of Orochimaru's former associates as well. Old snakes slithering out of hiding. The casual mention of Orochimaru sent ice through Naruto's veins. What kind of movement? Sakura shrugged, already turning to go. I don't have details. That's what the meeting is for. She paused, glancing back with a slight frown. You okay? You look pale suddenly. Fine, he managed, forcing a smile. Just remembered I promised Konohamaru a training session this morning. Better get cleaned up. She accepted this with a nod and a wave, leaving Naruto alone with the growing certainty that his nightmare had been more than simple anxiety. Something was happening, something connected to Orochimaru, to Anko's past, to the threats gathering around them. He needed information, and he needed it now. The Intelligence Division occupied a nondescript building near the center of Konoha. No signs marked its purpose, no distinctive architecture betrayed its function. Power in the shinobi world often manifested not in flashy jutsu but in carefully gathered information, a principle embodied in the division's understated presence. Naruto strode through the entrance, nodding to the ANBU guards who made no move to stop the hero of the Fourth Shinobi War. Inside, the atmosphere shifted immediately, cooler air, subdued lighting, the soft hum of activity carefully contained within soundproofed walls. He found Shikamaru in a side office, surrounded by maps and intelligence reports, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he'd been there all night. You look like hell, Naruto observed, closing the door behind him. Shikamaru didn't look up from the report he was studying. You're not exactly fresh as a daisy yourself. Couldn't sleep. Join the club. Shikamaru finally raised his head, fixing Naruto with a penetrating stare. What brings you to intelligence before the official briefing? You usually avoid this place like it's vegetable shopping. Naruto leaned against the wall, attempting casual indifference. Sakura mentioned something about Orochimaru's associates becoming active again. Thought I'd get a head start on the information. Since when do you get a head start on intelligence briefings? Shikamaru's eyes narrowed slightly. This wouldn't have anything to do with Anko Midarashi's current mission, would it? The question landed like a physical blow. Naruto kept his expression neutral through sheer force of will. Should it? You tell me. Shikamaru set down his report and leaned back in his chair. You two worked that laboratory mission together 6 months ago. Found some pretty disturbing research on the Cursed Seal, if I remember correctly. Relief flooded through Naruto. Shikamaru was making a professional connection, not a personal one. Right. I figured if Orochimaru's people are moving again, Anko might be on their radar. Given her history with the snake bastard, it wasn't a lie, just a carefully edited truth. The kind of verbal ninjutsu he'd had to master since his secret marriage began. Shikamaru seemed to accept this, gesturing to a sealed folder on the edge of his desk. Preliminary report on the Orochimaru situation. Technically above your clearance until the Hokage briefs everyone, but he shrugged. You saved the world. I think we can bend protocol. Naruto grabbed the folder with perhaps too much eagerness, forcing himself to open it slowly rather than tearing into its contents. The first page contained a list of known associates of Orochimaru who had been spotted in the past month. Most names meant nothing to him, but one jumped out immediately. Kabuto Yakushi confirmed sighting, northern land of water marshlands, 3 days ago. Exactly where Anko had been sent. The room seemed to tilt slightly as Naruto continued reading, each word increasing the dread pooling in his stomach. Subject appears to be tracking something/someone specific. Analysis suggests potential interest in former test subjects or experiments. Priority surveillance recommended for all shinobi with known connections to Orochimaru's research. Like Anko, one of the few survivors of the Cursed Seal. This is bad, Naruto murmured, more to himself than to Shikamaru. It gets worse, Shikamaru replied, sliding another document across the desk. This came in an hour ago. Intelligence extraction request from our agent in the field. Naruto's heart nearly stopped as he recognized the coded signature at the bottom of the page. Anko, requesting emergency extraction due to severe physiological reaction to unknown stimulus. The message was brief, clinical, but between the lines, Naruto could read the truth. She was in trouble. Serious trouble. Has Kakashi approved this? He demanded, already calculating how fast he could reach the land of water. Shikamaru nodded. Extraction team departed 20 minutes ago. She should be back in Konoha by tomorrow morning, assuming they reach her without complications. 20 minutes. If he left now, moving at top speed, he might catch up to the extraction team before they reached Anko. But such an action would be impossible to explain without revealing everything. Naruto forced himself to breathe, to think strategically as Anko herself had taught him during their training sessions. What's the working theory on why Kabuto would be targeting former test subjects now? We have two main hypotheses, Shikamaru replied, apparently not noticing the strain in Naruto's voice. First, he's collecting data to continue Orochimaru's research independently. Second, he's eliminating loose ends, people who might have information that could threaten whatever he's planning next. Neither option boded well for Anko. There's a third possibility, Naruto said slowly, a realization dawning that made his blood run cold. Revenge. Shikamaru raised an eyebrow. Against Orochimaru's test subjects? Why, not against them? Naruto met his friend's gaze steadily. Through them. Revenge against those who defeated Orochimaru. Against Konoha. He paused, the pieces falling into place. Against me. Understanding dawned in Shikamaru's eyes. The Akatsuki sympathizers targeting your connections and simultaneously, Orochimaru's right-hand man turns up in the same area where we sent one of the few shinobi intimately familiar with Orochimaru's research. It's not a coincidence, Naruto confirmed, a cold certainty settling over him. They're working together. And they're using people connected to me as bait. The implications hung in the air between them. If Kabuto was targeting people with connections to Naruto, then Anko's position as his former mission partner would place her on the list. But if anyone discovered their true relationship, she would move from being a target of opportunity to the prime target. We need to recall all shinobi with connections to you who are currently in the field, Shikamaru was saying, already reaching for a communication scroll. Sakura, Sai, Hinata, anyone who might be vulnerable. Naruto nodded mechanically, his mind racing ahead to the moment when Anko would return to Konoha, to the reality that the haven they had created in their secret life together was now threatened not just by political complications, but by enemies actively seeking to destroy everything they cared about. I'll inform Kakashi, he said, already moving toward the door. We need to strengthen village security protocols immediately. As he left the intelligence division, Naruto's thoughts turned to the forest cabin, their private sanctuary, the one place where they could be themselves without pretense or performance, the one place where Anko allowed herself to be vulnerable, to share the burdens she carried from her time with Orochimaru. 2 months earlier, moonlight spilled through the cabin's window, painting silver patterns across the rumpled bedsheets. Naruto woke suddenly, instinctively reaching for a kunai before registering what had disturbed his sleep. Anko, rigid beside him, her breathing ragged and uneven. Anko? He whispered, hand hovering above her shoulder, hesitant to touch her without warning. She'd nearly broken his wrist once when he'd startled her awake from a nightmare. A soft whimper escaped her lips, a sound so unlike her normal confident self that it twisted something in Naruto's chest. Her hand clutched at her neck, fingernails digging into the skin where the curse seal had once marked her. No, she murmured, still caught in the dream's grip. Not again. I can't. Anko, he said more firmly, channeling a thin stream of his chakra to brush against hers, a technique they developed for precisely these situations. It's Naruto. You're safe. You're in our cabin. Her eyes flew open, wild and disoriented. For a moment, she didn't seem to recognize him, her body coiling with combat readiness. Then awareness flooded back, and she collapsed against him with a shuddering exhale. Bad one? He asked softly, arms encircling her with gentle pressure. She nodded against his chest, her usual sharp edges temporarily dulled by the remnants of terror. It was different this time. Not memories. Something new. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He was experimenting on you. Using what he learned from me to break you apart. Naruto tightened his hold, one hand coming up to stroke her hair. No platitudes, no empty reassurances, just presence, solid and unwavering. He'd learned that's what she needed most in these moments. After a while, her breathing steadied, but the tension remained in her body. It still burns sometimes, she admitted, fingers tracing the unmarked skin of her neck. Phantom pain. The medics say there's nothing physically wrong, that it's just psychological aftereffects. But you don't believe them, Naruto observed quietly. A bitter laugh escaped her. Would you? Orochimaru's techniques went beyond normal ninjutsu. He mixed forbidden jutsu with biology, psychology, chemical compounds no one else had even conceived of. She pulled away slightly, meeting his gaze in the moonlight. The curse seal rewrote parts of who I am at a cellular level. Just because it's gone doesn't mean I'm intact. The raw vulnerability in her admission struck Naruto speechless. This was Anko Mitarashi, feared special jonin, former student of a Sannin, woman who terrified hardened criminals with a single smile. Yet here, in the sanctuary they'd created together, she allowed him to see her broken pieces. I know something about having your body altered without consent, he said finally, fingers absently touching his stomach where the nine-tailed seal lay hidden. About carrying someone else's legacy in your cells. Her eyes softened with understanding. It was one of the unexpected bridges between them, this shared experience of being marked, of having their bodies turned into vessels for power not entirely their own. How do you make peace with it? She asked, genuine curiosity beneath the question. Naruto considered this, wanting to give her a real answer rather than something reflexively optimistic. I don't think I have, completely, but I've learned to see Kurama as separate from the legacy forced on me. To build a relationship with him that's ours, not what others intended. His hand moved to her neck, gently covering the spot where the curse seal had been. Your body remembers trauma. That doesn't make you broken or contaminated. It makes you a survivor. Something shifted in her expression, the hardened exterior cracking just enough to reveal the woman beneath the armor. Her hand came up to cover his, pressing it more firmly against her neck. The pain's less when you do that, she admitted. When your chakra touches mine. It's like it pushes back the shadows. The simple confession humbled him. Of all the achievements in his life, defeating pain, helping win the war, being named Kakashi's successor, nothing filled him with greater purpose than this, being the person Anko Mitarashi trusted with her deepest wounds. Then I'll keep doing it, he promised. Whenever you need, however long it takes. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his in an uncharacteristically tender gesture. This is exactly why I told myself not to fall for you, Uzumaki. You make it impossible to maintain proper emotional distance. He grinned, the tension in the room breaking slightly. Pretty sure that ship sailed when you agreed to marry me. Temporary insanity, she countered, but the ghost of a smile played at her lips. Clearly a lapse in judgment. Best lapse ever, he murmured, brushing his lips against hers. They settled back against the pillows, Naruto's hand remaining on her neck, his chakra a gentle, constant presence against the phantom pain. As Anko drifted back toward sleep, she mumbled something that caught him off guard. Sometimes I think you're the only real thing in my life. Everything else is just shadows and performance. The words stayed with him long after she had fallen asleep, a weight and a gift he carried carefully in the quiet chambers of his heart. The memory faded as Naruto entered the Hokage Tower, determination setting his features into uncharacteristically hard lines. He found Kakashi alone in his office, standing at the window as he often did when troubled by difficult decisions. You've heard, the sixth Hokage said without turning around. About Anko? Yes. Naruto moved to stand beside his former sensei, gazing out at the village below. The extraction team left 20 minutes ago. Kakashi's visible eye slid sideways to study Naruto's profile. And you're here instead of racing after them because? The question hung in the air, loaded with subtext. Naruto chose his words carefully, conscious of how much Kakashi might already suspect. Because she's a capable shinobi who would kick my ass for suggesting she needs rescuing, he replied, injecting a lightness into his tone that he didn't feel. And because we have a bigger problem to solve here. Kakashi nodded slowly. Kabuto's alliance with the Akatsuki remnants. Not just an alliance, Naruto corrected. A coordinated strategy targeting people connected to me. Testing vulnerabilities, gathering information, setting traps. His hands clenched at his sides. Using my precious people as bait. A sound analysis, Kakashi agreed. The question is, what do they hope to achieve? Your death? Your capture? Or something else entirely? Naruto stared at the stone faces of previous Hokages carved into the mountain. I don't think it's about me directly. I think it's about destabilizing Konoha, creating chaos by attacking the connections that give the village strength. A flicker of pride crossed Kakashi's face. You've been paying attention in those strategy sessions. That's exactly the working theory intelligence has developed. Then we need to protect those connections, Naruto insisted. Not by isolating me, that plays into their hands, but by strengthening the bonds they're targeting. Kakashi turned fully to face his former student, expression unreadable beneath his mask. And how do you propose we do that? Transparency, Naruto said without hesitation. They're exploiting secrets, hidden relationships, vulnerabilities we try to conceal. So we bring everything into the light. Make it impossible for them to use our connections against us because those connections are openly acknowledged and protected. A heavy silence filled the office as Kakashi studied him. Are you sure that's what you want, Naruto? Complete transparency? For everyone in your life? The real question beneath his words was clear. Was Naruto ready to make his relationship with Anko public? To face the consequences of their secret marriage being revealed? Before he could answer, the door burst open, and Shizen rushed in, face pale with urgency. Lord Hokage, she gasped, clutching a message scroll. We've received an emergency communication from the extraction team. They reached the rendezvous point, but Special Jonin Midarashi wasn't there. She swallowed hard. There were signs of struggle, evidence of combat. Blood matching her type. The world seemed to freeze around Naruto, sound receding as though he'd been plunged underwater. He was vaguely aware of Kakashi issuing rapid orders, of Shizen's continued report, but the words blurred together into meaningless noise beneath the roaring in his ears. Anko was missing. Anko was injured. Anko was in the hands of enemies who had specifically targeted her because of her connection to Orochimaru, and potentially to him. He didn't realize he was moving until Kakashi's hand clamped down on his shoulder, halting him halfway to the door. Naruto. Stop. Think. Let go, Naruto growled, blue eyes bleeding into red as Kurama's chakra responded to his emotional state. I'm going after her. You'll do no such thing, Kakashi countered, voice hardening with command. Not alone, not without a plan, and certainly not while broadcasting enough killing intent to alert every sensor type in the village. The rational part of Naruto's mind recognized the wisdom in Kakashi's words, but it was currently overwhelmed by the primal fear gripping his heart. Anko was in danger. His wife was in danger, and every instinct screamed at him to find her, to protect her, to tear apart anyone who had dared harm her. She needs me, he insisted, voice rough with emotion he could no longer fully conceal. Kakashi's grip tightened. And she needs you thinking clearly, not charging into an obvious trap. This is exactly what they want, to use her to draw you out, to separate you from Konoha's protection. Shizen looked between them, confusion evident in her expression. I don't understand. Why would they specifically use Anko to target Naruto? They worked one mission together months ago. There are others with much closer connections to him. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Naruto felt the weight of Kakashi's gaze, the unspoken question hanging between them. Will you tell the truth, or maintain the secret? Before he could decide, Shizen gasped softly, eyes widening as understanding dawned. Unless there's more to your relationship than is publicly known. Naruto closed his eyes briefly, the decision crystallizing with sudden clarity. Anko's safety mattered more than political considerations, more than his future as Hokage, more than anything. She's my wife, he said simply, the words simultaneously a weight lifted and a vulnerability exposed. We've been married for 3 months. Shizen's jaw dropped, shock rendering her momentarily speechless. Even Kakashi, who had officiated the ceremony, seemed taken aback by Naruto's open admission. Into the stunned silence, a new voice spoke from the doorway. Well. The fox finally acknowledges his mate. They turned to find Ibiki Marino leaning against the frame, arms crossed over his scarred face, impassive as always. You knew? Naruto asked, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. Ibiki's lips twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. Head of intelligence, remember? If I didn't know about a secret marriage involving 2 of Konoha's most notable shinobi, I'd be failing at my job. Then you also know why they took her, Naruto pressed, desperation creeping back into his tone. The interrogation specialist nodded gravely. I received this an hour ago. He held up a small scroll bearing an unfamiliar seal, delivered directly to Intelligence Division headquarters by a messenger hawk bearing Orochimaru's insignia. He unrolled the scroll, revealing a message written in precise, meticulous handwriting that sent chills down Naruto's spine even before he read the words. To the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, I have reclaimed what belongs to my master. Anko Midarashi was Orochimaru's most promising student before her defection. The research data she carries in her modified cells is invaluable to my continued work. However, I am willing to negotiate an exchange. Your unique cellular structure, combined with the Nine-Tails chakra, for her safe return. Come alone to the coordinates below in 3 days' time. Any attempt to bring reinforcements or alert authorities will result in the immediate activation of the dormant agent I've placed in her system, a modification of the original curse seal that will consume her from the inside out. I look forward to studying your remarkable healing capabilities up close, Kabuto Yakushi. The message ended with a precise set of coordinates that Naruto immediately committed to memory. It's a trap, Kakashi said unnecessarily. Of course it's a trap, Naruto replied, a dangerous calm settling over him. The initial panic had receded, replaced by a cold, focused fury that was somehow more frightening. But that doesn't change what I have to do, which is exactly what we're going to plan, carefully and strategically, Kakashi countered. This isn't just about Anko anymore. This is about Kabuto potentially acquiring both Ninetales chakra and your Uzumaki life force. The threat that combination would pose extends far beyond Konoha. Naruto wanted to argue, to insist that nothing mattered more than getting to Anko immediately. But the shinobi in him, the part trained through years of combat and strategy, recognized the truth in Kakashi's words. 3 days, he said finally. We have 3 days to develop a plan that saves Anko without giving Kabuto what he wants. His eyes met Kakashi's, resolve hardening his usually carefree features. And when we do, I want the truth made public. No more secrets. No more hiding. Anko deserves better than to be treated as my shameful secret. Kakashi studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Agreed. Assemble a team you trust implicitly. No more than 4, including yourself. The fewer people who know the details, the less chance of information leaking to Kabuto. As Naruto turned to go, already mentally selecting his team, Ibiki's voice stopped him at the threshold. Uzumaki. There's something else you should know. The interrogation specialist's expression was uncharacteristically grave. The message mentions a dormant agent in Anko's system. Based on intelligence analysis of Orochimaru's research, we believe Kabuto may have activated residual elements of the cursed seal. But the seal was removed years ago, Naruto protested, cold dread pooling in his stomach. The visible marking, yes, Ibiki confirmed. But Orochimaru's techniques operated at a cellular level. Residual traces remain dormant in the chakra network of former hosts, typically harmless, but theoretically capable of being reactivated with the right stimulus. Naruto remembered Anko's nightmares, her phantom pain, her certainty that the cursed seal had altered her in ways that couldn't be fully reversed. She'd been right all along. Can it be neutralized? He demanded. Unknown, Ibiki admitted. This is unprecedented territory. But if anyone might know, it would be Tsunade or Sakura, given their expertise in cellular-level medical ninjutsu. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. That's why Kabuto was watching her in the land of water. He wasn't trying to capture her then. He was activating whatever he'd planted in her system. Testing his control. A reasonable hypothesis, Ibiki agreed. Which suggests he's been planning this for some time. This isn't opportunistic, it's strategic. The implication hung in the air. Someone had informed Kabuto about Naruto and Anko's relationship. Someone close enough to know their secret. Naruto's mind raced through possibilities, cataloging everyone who might have discovered the truth. The circle was small. Kakashi officially, perhaps Shikamaru through observation, potentially others who had noticed patterns or changes in behavior, or someone who had been watching from the shadows all along, patiently gathering intelligence for Kabuto's use. As the realization dawned, Naruto's expression hardened further. The enemy wasn't just external. It was within Konoha's walls, which meant that saving Anko would require more than strength and strategy. It would require identifying the traitor in their midst before time ran out. 3 days, he repeated, voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. We need to work fast. In the land of water, locked in a cell designed to contain even the most powerful shinobi, Anko Mitarashi fought against the burning agony spreading through her system. The pain radiated from her neck, flowing through chakra pathways like liquid fire, retracing the pattern of a seal long removed but never truly gone. Through the haze of suffering, a single thought sustained her. Naruto would come for her. And when he did, Kabuto Yakushi would learn why crossing an Uzumaki, and harming those they loved, was considered suicidal by even the most powerful shinobi in history. As darkness crept at the edges of her consciousness, Anko smiled grimly. Kabuto thought he was using her to trap Naruto. But he had made a critical miscalculation. He had forgotten what happened to those who threatened what Naruto Uzumaki considered precious. Rain hammered against the windows of Naruto's apartment, each droplet a miniature explosion against glass. The storm had descended on Konoha without warning, transforming the vibrant village into a blur of grays and silvers that matched Naruto's turbulent mood. He paced back and forth across the floorboards, golden chakra crackling around his fingertips in response to emotions he couldn't fully contain. A sharp knock cut through the noise of rainfall. 3 rapid taps, a pause, then 2 more. Naruto froze. That was their signal. His and Anko's private code. His heart launched into his throat as he lunged for the door, wrenching it open with enough force to splinter wood. Sasuke Uchiha stood in the hallway, raven hair plastered to his pale forehead, one eyebrow raised at Naruto's explosive reaction. Expecting someone else? He asked, dark eyes instantly cataloging Naruto's disheveled appearance, the barely contained chakra flaring around him, the wild hope that had flashed across his face before crumbling into disappointment. How did you? Naruto began, then shook his head. Never mind. Come in. Sasuke stepped inside, water cascading from his travel cloak onto the entryway floor. He made no move to remove his sodden garment, instead studying his friend with that penetrating gaze that had always seen too much. Kakashi sent a message, Sasuke said without preamble. Said you'd requested me specifically for an urgent mission. Yeah, Naruto confirmed, running a hand through his spiky hair, which stood at even more chaotic angles than usual. Thanks for coming so quickly. I was already on my way back when I got the message. Sasuke's eyes narrowed slightly. What's happened? The note mentioned a kidnapping, but no specifics. Naruto turned away, moving to the window where rain streaked down in rivulets, distorting the village beyond. How much could he tell Sasuke? How much should he? The confession to Kakashi, Shizune, and Ibiki had been born of desperation and immediate necessity. This was different. This was one of his oldest friends, the person who had known him longest, who had walked through darkness and emerged on the other side. If anyone might understand complicated relationships and difficult choices, it would be Sasuke. Anko Mitarashi has been taken, Naruto said finally, his voice unnaturally tight. By Kabuto. He's working with Akatsuki sympathizers, targeting people with connections to me. Anko? Sasuke repeated, genuine surprise flashing across his typically stoic features. Why would they think capturing her would affect you particularly? You've worked together, what, once? Twice? The question hung in the air between them. Naruto's fingers drummed against the windowsill, leaving tiny indentations in the wood as his control slipped. Outside, lightning split the sky, momentarily illuminating his reflection in the glass. A man barely recognizable to himself. Eyes flecked with crimson, jaw clenched with strain. Because she's my wife, he said, the words bursting from him in a jagged exhale. Silence crashed into the room, broken only by the relentless drumming of rain. Naruto turned to face his friend, bracing for judgment, confusion, disbelief, anything but the dawning comprehension that spread across Sasuke's face. So that's where you've been disappearing to, Sasuke said softly. I wondered. Relief hit Naruto like a physical blow. You're not surprised? That you married someone in secret? No. A ghost of a smile touched Sasuke's lips. That it's Anko Mitarashi? Somewhat. How many others have noticed me disappearing? Naruto asked, the security implications sending a fresh wave of anxiety through him. Anyone paying attention, Sasuke replied with characteristic bluntness. Sakura's been worried. She thinks you're isolating yourself, processing delayed trauma from the war. The revelation struck Naruto harder than expected. He'd been so focused on maintaining appearances that he hadn't considered how his absence might be interpreted, or how it might hurt those who cared about him. I never meant to worry anyone, he muttered, guilt coloring his tone. It just seemed easier to keep things quiet, given everything. The age difference? Sasuke suggested. Her connection to Orochimaru? The political complications for your path to becoming Hokage? All of that, Naruto confirmed, leaning against the wall. And then there's the security issue. Anyone close to me is automatically a target. Sasuke shrugged out of his wet cloak at last, draping it over a chair with deliberate precision, which has now proven true regardless of whether your relationship is public or not. The observation landed like a punch to the gut. Yeah, Naruto agreed, voice hollow. Ironic, right? Sasuke crossed the room in 3 quick strides, stopping directly in front of Naruto. Without warning, he poked 2 fingers against Naruto's forehead, an echo of the gesture Itachi had once used with him, now repurposed as Sasuke's uniquely awkward form of affection. Tell me everything, he said. From the beginning. 40 minutes later, Sasuke sat cross-legged on Naruto's couch, absorbing the full story of Naruto and Anko's relationship, while Naruto continued his restless pacing. So Kabuto has reactivated elements of her cursed seal, Sasuke summarized, unconsciously touching his own neck where Orochimaru's mark had once resided. That's troubling. Troubling? Naruto exploded, chakra flaring bright enough to cast shadows across the walls. It's a fucking catastrophe. Control yourself, Sasuke replied coolly. Losing your temper won't help, Anko. You said we have 3 days before Kabuto expects you at the coordinates. That gives us time to develop a strategy. The rational part of Naruto recognized the wisdom in his friend's words, but every fiber of his being screamed to act now, to tear across countries until he found Anko and obliterated anyone who dared harm her. 3 days of her suffering, he growled, the whisker marks on his cheeks deepening as Kurama's chakra responded to his distress. Sasuke rose in one fluid motion, fixing Naruto with a hard stare. 3 days of her surviving. Don't underestimate her, Naruto. Anko endured Orochimaru's tutelage and experimentation. She survived the curse seal when most didn't. She's not some helpless civilian awaiting rescue. The words hit their mark, piercing Naruto's panic with clarity. Sasuke was right. Anko was a formidable shinobi in her own right, clever, resourceful, and wickedly skilled. She wouldn't passively await rescue. She'd be fighting, gathering intelligence, looking for weaknesses to exploit. A sharp rap at the door interrupted his thoughts. Not their special knock. This was more urgent, authoritative. Naruto! Sakura's voice called through the wood. Open up! I know you're in there. Naruto and Sasuke exchanged glances, a silent question passing between them. How much should they reveal? Let her in, Sasuke advised quietly. We need her medical expertise if we're going to counter whatever Kabuto's done to the cursed seal. With reluctant agreement, Naruto crossed to the door and pulled it open. Sakura stood in the hallway, pink hair darkened to rose by the rain, emerald eyes blazing with a mixture of concern and irritation. Why haven't you been answering your... She stopped abruptly, registering Sasuke's presence with visible surprise. Oh, Sasuke-kun. You're back. Just arrived, he confirmed with a nod. Sakura stepped inside, dripping onto the floorboards as her gaze swept between them. What's going on? The hospital's buzzing with rumors that a special jonin was captured on a mission, but no one will give me details. I thought you might know something. The moment stretched taut with indecision. Naruto looked to Sasuke, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Sakura, Naruto began carefully, what do you know about the curse seal? Medically speaking? Her brow furrowed in confusion at the apparent non-sequitur. Quite a bit, actually. After Sasuke's was removed, I worked with Tsunade-sama to study the cellular alterations it caused. We were developing countermeasures in case Orochimaru created new variants. Her eyes narrowed suspiciously. Why? Because Anko Mitarashi has been captured, Sasuke answered when Naruto hesitated. And Kabuto has reactivated residual elements of her cursed seal. What? Sakura gasped, instantly shifting into clinical mode. But that's theoretically impossible once the mark is removed. The physical changes remain, but the chakra network should be. She stopped abruptly, realization dawning. Unless Kabuto found a way to target those altered cells directly. That's our working theory, Naruto confirmed, grateful for her immediate focus on the problem rather than questions about why they were involved. I need to see Tsunade-sama immediately, Sakura declared, already turning toward the door. If anyone can develop a countermeasure, it's her. But I'll need everything you know about the specifics of what Kabuto's done. Sakura, wait, Naruto called, halting her mid-step. The weight of his next words felt like a physical burden. There's something else you should know. She turned back, concern etching lines between her brows at his tone. Anko isn't just a fellow shinobi, he continued, forcing each word past the tightness in his throat. She's my wife. We've been married in secret for 3 months. For a beat, Sakura's expression remained frozen in polite attention. Then her eyes widened, jaw slackening in shock as she processed his words. Your wife? She repeated, voice faint. Naruto nodded, bracing for questions, judgment, hurt at being kept in the dark, any of the reasonable reactions he might expect from one of his oldest friends. Instead, Sakura crossed the room in 3 quick strides and wrapped her arms around him in a fierce embrace. You idiot, she murmured against his shoulder. You complete, utter idiot. Why didn't you tell me? I could have helped protect your secret. The unexpected response broke something loose in Naruto's chest, a knot of tension he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. His arms came up to return her hug, gratitude washing through him. I didn't want to put anyone else at risk, he explained. The fewer people who knew, the safer it seemed. She pulled back, fixing him with a stern look that reminded him of their genin days. And how's that working out for you? Not great, he admitted with a weak attempt at a smile. Right, Sakura said decisively, releasing him. So now we fix it. Together, we get Anko back, neutralize whatever Kabuto's done to her, and then you introduce your wife to your friends properly. Her tone left no room for argument. But first, I need every detail about this reactivated seal. symptoms, triggers, anything you know. As Naruto relayed Ibiki's information, Sakura's expression grew increasingly grave. By the time he finished, she was already scribbling notes on a small pad she'd pulled from her medical pouch. I'm going to need access to the original research Anko, and you recovered from Orochimaru's lab, she said, not looking up from her writing, and blood samples from other Curse Seal survivors for comparison. I'll speak to Kakashi, Sasuke offered. He can authorize emergency access to the restricted archives. Good, Sakura nodded, tucking away her notes. Naruto, you need to pull together the rest of the rescue team. If Kabuto's working with Akatsuki remnants, we're looking at multiple high-level opponents in a fortified location. Her decisive competence grounded Naruto, providing structure to the chaotic emotions threatening to overwhelm him. This was what they did best, Team 7, working together to overcome impossible odds. Shikamaru's already analyzing the coordinates Kabuto provided, he told them. And I was thinking of asking Sai for aerial reconnaissance. Solid choices, Sasuke agreed. But we need someone who can counter genjutsu in case Kabuto's picked up some of Orochimaru's techniques. I can handle that, Sakura asserted confidently. Between my chakra control and your Sharingan, we should be covered. The three exchanged looks, falling into the familiar rhythm of mission planning that had sustained them through countless battles. For the first time since hearing of Anko's capture, Naruto felt the faintest flicker of hope. Then, without warning, a blinding pain lanced through his chest, driving him to his knees with a strangled gasp. The sensation was foreign yet hauntingly familiar, not his pain, but Anko's, transmitted through some connection he couldn't explain. Naruto! Sakura cried, dropping beside him, hands already glowing with diagnostic chakra. It's not me, he managed through gritted teeth, pressing a fist against his sternum where the phantom agony radiated outward. It's her. I can feel it. Sasuke and Sakura exchanged alarmed glances over his hunched form. That shouldn't be possible, Sakura murmured, her medical skin finding nothing physically wrong with Naruto. Unless, the Nine-Tails chakra, Sasuke finished her thought. It might be creating a bridge somehow. The pain receded as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving Naruto panting on the floor, cold sweat beading his forehead. I felt her once before, right when Kabuto first activated the seal. But nothing this intense. This changes things, Sakura said grimly, helping him back to his feet. If you're experiencing sympathetic reactions to her pain, it means Kabuto's escalating whatever he's doing. We need to move faster, Naruto insisted, steadying himself against the wall. 3 days might be too long. We need to move smarter, Sasuke countered. If you rush in unprepared, you'll both end up captured or worse. Further discussion was cut short by another knock at the door, soft, hesitant, distinctly different from Sakura's authoritative rap. Naruto opened it to find Hinata Hyuga standing in the hallway, her pale eyes reflecting the dim light. Naruto-kun, she greeted softly. Kakashi-sama sent me. There's been a development with the security systems. We need you at Intelligence Headquarters immediately. The Intelligence Division Headquarters hummed with barely contained urgency, shinobi moving with the controlled haste that signaled crisis. Ibiki Marino stood at the center of the operations room, scarred face grim as he directed teams of analysts poring over maps and intercepted communications. When Naruto entered with Sasuke, Sakura, and Hinata in tow, the interrogation specialist merely nodded, unsurprised by the expanded group. News traveled fast in Konoha, especially among the elite Jonin ranks. Status? Naruto demanded without preamble. Compromised, Ibiki replied bluntly. 3 of our external sensor networks went dark simultaneously 1 hour ago. Communications with border outposts are experiencing interference, and we've detected unauthorized access attempts in the secure archives, specifically targeting files related to Jinchuriki seals. I slid down Naruto's spine. Kabuto. Most likely working through proxies, Ibiki agreed. The timing is too precise to be coincidental. He's laying groundwork. Shikamaru's voice cut in as he emerged from an adjoining room, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept. Disabling our early warning systems, blocking communications, gathering intelligence on how the Nine-Tails is sealed within you. Naruto's fists clenched. Preparing for the exchange. Or preparing to ensure there's no rescue after the exchange, Sasuke corrected grimly. Kakashi appeared at the doorway, his masked face revealing nothing of his thoughts. We've identified a potential location based on the coordinates Kabuto provided. It's a former Orochimaru research facility in the northern mountains, believed abandoned after the war. Believed being the operative word, Shikamaru muttered. I've already dispatched ANBU for reconnaissance, Kakashi continued. They'll maintain distance to avoid detection, but we need intel on what we're facing. And Anko? Naruto asked, dreading the answer. A flicker of sympathy crossed Kakashi's visible eye. No confirmation of her location yet, but there are reports of unusual chakra fluctuations in the facility's subterranean levels. Consistent with curse seal manifestations, the phantom pain in Naruto's chest throbbed in response, a dull echo of Anko's suffering. He forced himself to breathe through it, to focus on solutions rather than rage. Sakura thinks she can develop a countermeasure, he said, gesturing to his pink-haired teammate. Something to neutralize whatever Kabuto's done to Anko's seal. Kakashi nodded. Tsunade is already gathering the necessary research materials. Sakura, she's waiting for you at the hospital's secure laboratory. I'll go immediately, Sakura confirmed, squeezing Naruto's arm in silent support before departing. The rest of you will be briefed on the rescue operation parameters, Kakashi continued. But first, there's another matter requiring attention. His gaze shifted to Ino Yamanaka, who stood quietly in the corner of the room, her usually confident posture subdued. Ino has information relevant to the situation. All eyes turned to the blonde Kunoichi, who stepped forward with visible reluctance. I conducted routine mind scans on returning mission teams yesterday, as per security protocols following the initial Akatsuki sympathizer reports. Standard procedure, Ibiki confirmed. To identify potential compromised agents or sleeper genjutsu. During the scan of Team 8, Ino continued, her pale blue eyes meeting Naruto's apologetically. I picked up something unexpected. Hinata's hands clasped tightly before her, her soft voice barely audible. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. I didn't realize. Understanding dawned, hitting Naruto like a physical blow. You saw us. Me and Anko. Hinata nodded miserably. It was an accident. I was passing by the training grounds 2 weeks ago, very early morning. You were saying goodbye before her mission. The way you looked at each other, she trailed off, cheeks flushing. And during the mind scan, this memory surfaced, Ino finished. I only glimpsed it for a moment, but it was enough. I reported it immediately to Ibiki-san, given the security implications. Who else knows? Sasuke asked sharply. Only those in this room, Ibiki assured them. And Hokage-sama, of course. Relief warred with fresh anxiety in Naruto's chest. The circle of those aware of his relationship with Anko was expanding rapidly, each new person both a potential ally and a potential security vulnerability. This actually presents an opportunity, Shikamaru interjected, hands forming his characteristic thinking pose. We've been working on the assumption that someone informed Kabuto about your relationship with Anko. Someone inside Konoha. A traitor, Naruto confirmed grimly. If so, they don't know that we know, Shikamaru continued, a strategic gleam in his dark eyes. We can use that. Feed false information, observe who acts on it. A trap within a trap, Sasuke mused with grudging approval. Kakashi nodded. Already initiated. We've accidentally leaked plans for a small extraction team departing tomorrow at dawn through the eastern gate. While the actual team will move differently, Naruto surmised, catching on to the strategy. Exactly, Kakashi confirmed. But this brings us to a more immediate concern. His eye fixed on Naruto with unexpected intensity. The village council has requested your presence. They've been informed of the situation. The bare minimum needed to explain the security mobilization. Naruto's stomach dropped. They know about my marriage. They know Anko has been captured and that her connection to you is being exploited, Kakashi corrected carefully. I left the specific nature of that connection ambiguous. The implications were clear. Naruto would have to decide how much to reveal to the village elders, whose approval would be crucial for his future as Hokage. When? He asked, resignation coloring his tone. 1 hour, Kakashi replied. Which gives you just enough time for something else first. He glanced at Ino. Something that might help identify our potential leak. Ino stepped forward, her professional demeanor returning. A deep memory scanned Naruto. Voluntary, of course, to review everyone who might have observed interactions between you and Anko over the past few months. People who might have pieced together the truth. The proposal raised immediate concerns. Ino would see everything, Naruto pointed out, discomfort evident in his voice. All my memories of Anko. Private moments. I can be selective, Ino assured him, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. Focus only on public encounters, times when you might have been observed. And I'm bound by shinobi medical confidentiality. Naruto looked to Shikamaru, who nodded encouragement. It could give us critical information on who the leak might be. Time we don't have to waste on broader investigations. With reluctant agreement, Naruto found himself seated in a quiet side room minutes later, Ino's cool hands positioned on either side of his temples, her eyes closed in concentration. Relax, she murmured. Focus on times when you and Anko interacted in public. Places where others might have seen you together. Naruto closed his eyes, bringing forth memories he'd carefully guarded for months. Brief exchanges of coded glances across the mission assignment room, accidentally brushing hands while passing scrolls in the Hokage's office. The signal tap of fingers against thighs that meant meet tonight. All the countless small moments that had sustained their connection in public. Ino's chakra moved through his mind with surprising gentleness, a cool stream navigating the rushing river of his thoughts. Occasionally she would pause, examining a particular memory more closely. Anko leaning fractionally too close during a strategy briefing. Naruto lingering too long in conversation after an ANBU training session she'd conducted. The barely perceptible softening of her expression when he entered a room. There, Ino whispered suddenly, her chakra focusing sharply on a specific memory from 3 weeks earlier. The Hokage Tower, late evening. Naruto delivering mission reports, thinking the building nearly empty. Anko appearing at the end of the hallway, their eyes meeting with visible electricity. A quick check for witnesses, then 2 steps toward each other. Movement at the periphery. A shadow slipping behind a column. The distinct impression of being watched. Did you notice that at the time? Ino asked, voice tight with concentration. Vaguely, Naruto admitted. But we were distracted. I forgot about it afterward. Ino pushed deeper, enhancing the memory's details. The angle of light, the shape of the shadow, the faint sound of fabric shifting. Wait, she murmured. There's something. Before she could finish, the door burst open. Ibiki stood in the threshold, his imposing figure backlit by the hallway lights. We need to cut this short, he announced without apology. There's been another development. Ino withdrew from Naruto's mind with a gasp, the sudden disconnection leaving him momentarily disoriented. What's happened? The council meeting has been moved up, Ibiki replied grimly. And expanded. The village elders have requested the presence of all clan heads. They're convening in the main chamber in 15 minutes. Naruto rose unsteadily, cold dread settling in his stomach. Why? Because information about your marriage to Anko has leaked beyond our control, Ibiki stated flatly. Someone has bypassed our information containment. The entire village will know by sunset. The implications crashed over Naruto in a sickening wave. Their secret was rapidly becoming the village's most discussed topic, exactly the scenario they'd worked so hard to avoid. This complicates the rescue operation, Ibiki continued, his scarred face impassive. But it may flush out our traitor. People reveal themselves when plans change suddenly. Or it might prompt them to warn Kabuto that we know, Naruto countered, anxiety sharpening his voice. Ibiki nodded grimly. Which is why we've implemented a complete communication blackout. No messages in or out of the village without direct Hokage authorization. The severity of the measure wasn't lost on Naruto. Such protocols were typically reserved for imminent attack or war footing. That Kakashi had authorized them spoke volumes about the perceived threat level. I need to change before facing the council, Naruto muttered, glancing down at his rumpled, training-worn attire. No time, Ibiki dismissed the concern with a wave. The Hokage wants you there exactly as you are. Your appearance will emphasize the emergency nature of the situation. Before Naruto could argue, Sasuke appeared in the doorway behind Ibiki, his expression uncharacteristically urgent. You need to see this, he said without preamble, extending a small scroll toward Naruto. Just arrived by Hawk. Addressed specifically to you, Kakashi verified it's free of traps or genjutsu. Naruto accepted the scroll with wary confusion. The seal bore no identifying marks, but as his fingers brushed the parchment, a jolt of recognition shot through him. The chakra signature embedded in the wax, subtle, nearly undetectable to anyone else, was unmistakable. Anko. His hands trembled slightly as he broke the seal and unrolled the message. The handwriting was jagged, rushed, nothing like Anko's usual precise script, but undeniably hers. N, 3 squares plus serpent's fang. Moonlight betrayed by glass eye. The shadow watches westward at dawn. Remember our first night. The answer lies there. If I fall, burn everything. It's in code, Sasuke observed, peering over Naruto's shoulder. Our code, Naruto confirmed, a mixture of hope and dread coursing through him. The one we developed for emergencies. During their clandestine meetings, they created a private cipher, phrases laden with double meanings, references only they would understand. A system for communicating essential information that would appear meaningless to interceptors. Can you decipher it? Ibiki asked, professional interest overriding courtesy. Naruto's eyes scanned the message again, mind racing to translate. The first line identifies her location. 3 squares means 3 days' journey from our meeting point. Serpent's Fang is her code for Orochimaru's mountain facilities. Confirming our intelligence about the Northern Laboratory, Ibiki noted with approval. Moonlight betrayed by glass eye, Naruto continued, brow furrowing. That she's telling me Kabuto is working with someone who wears glasses. Someone who observed us during a nighttime meeting, and the shadow watching westward? Sasuke pressed. Naruto's expression darkened. A warning. There's someone watching the western approach to the facility. Someone dangerous enough that she felt the need to specify. What about the last lines? Ino asked tentatively. Remember our first night, and burn everything? A flush crept up Naruto's neck. That's personal. But important. Their first night together had been in a small inn in a border town. Following a joint mission, they'd registered under false names, paid in cash, spoken to no one. It was the one time they'd been together outside Konoha's boundaries, completely anonymous. She was telling him something critical about that location. Something that could help them. We need to move up the timetable, Naruto decided, rolling the scroll carefully and tucking it into his weapons pouch. Kabuto's accelerating his plans. Anko wouldn't risk sending this unless the situation was deteriorating. The council meeting first, Ibiki insisted. We need the clans unified behind this operation. Their resources, their intelligence networks, all will be crucial. Naruto wanted to argue, to insist that every minute spent in political maneuvering was another minute of Anko's suffering. But leadership meant making difficult choices, prioritizing strategic advantage over emotional impulse. Fine, he conceded. But immediately afterward, we finalized the extraction plan. As they made their way toward the council chambers, Naruto felt the weight of countless eyes tracking his progress through the Hokage Tower. Word was spreading rapidly, whispers following in his wake. The secret was unraveling thread by thread, the carefully constructed facade crumbling in real time. Strangely, amid the anxiety and urgency, he felt an unexpected lightening of his spirit. The need for deception was evaporating. Soon, he would no longer need to pretend Anko was merely a colleague, no longer need to manufacture excuses for his absences or monitor his every word and gesture in public. If, when they rescued her, they could finally live their truth openly. But first, they had to bring her home. The council chamber fell silent as Naruto entered, conversations cutting off mid-sentence as all eyes turned toward him. The village elders sat at the raised dais at the far end, their aged faces revealing nothing. Surrounding them in a semicircle were the clan heads, Hayashi Hyuga, Choza Akimichi, Ino's father Inoichi, Shikamaru's father Shikaku, and representatives from every significant family in Konoha. Kakashi stood slightly apart, his Hokage robes absent in favor of standard Jonin attire, a subtle statement that this was a military matter first, a political one second. Naruto walked the length of the chamber alone, acutely aware of the scrutiny. He'd faced down gods and monsters with less trepidation than he felt approaching this assembly of Konoha's power brokers. They could not prevent the rescue mission, nothing could stop him from going after Anko. But their support would make the difference between a coordinated operation and a desperate solo attempt. Koharu Yuditane, one of the eldest council members, spoke first, her voice creaking with age but sharp with authority. Uzumaki Naruto, she began, formal and severe. Is it true that you have married special Jonin Mitarashi Anko in secret, without the knowledge or sanction of this council? Direct, blunt, leaving no room for equivocation. Naruto met her gaze steadily. Yes, he answered, his voice carrying easily through the hushed chamber. 3 months ago, with Hokage Kakashi as our witness, murmurs rippled through the assembled leaders. Hamura Mitokado, Koharu's longtime ally on the council, leaned forward with a frown. And you concealed this union because? He prompted, disapproval evident in every line of his ancient face. Naruto squared his shoulders, aware that his answer could determine the level of support he received. For multiple reasons. Security concerns, given the targeting of those close to me by remaining Akatsuki sympathizers. Political considerations, given Anko's history with Orochimaru. And personal privacy. Privacy is a luxury not afforded to shinobi of your stature, Koharu countered sharply. Particularly one being groomed as a future Hokage. With respect, Naruto replied, keeping his tone level despite the flare of irritation. Every shinobi deserves some measure of personal life outside their duty to the village. Hayashi Hyuga rose from his seat, pale eyes unreadable as always. The issue is not your right to marry Uzumaki, but the implications of choosing to do so in secret. Secrecy suggests either shame or fear, either quality becoming in a future leader. The accusation stung more than Naruto had expected. Before he could formulate a response, Shikaku Nara spoke up from his position among the clan heads. The strategic wisdom of maintaining such a secret is debatable, he acknowledged, his scarred face thoughtful. But that's not our immediate concern. Special Jonin Mitarashi has been captured specifically because of her connection to Naruto. Our priority should be her recovery and the neutralization of threats to Konoha's security. Murmurs of agreement followed his pragmatic assessment. And Noichi Yamanaka rose next, adding his considerable influence to the discussion. My daughter has confirmed through mind-scanning techniques that there appears to be a leak within our ranks. Someone who informed Kabuto Yakushi of this relationship. That security breach is far more concerning than the relationship itself. The mood in the chamber shifted perceptibly, focus redirecting from Naruto's personal choices to the more immediate threat of internal betrayal. Kakashi seized the opening with characteristic timing. The Hokage's office has already authorized a rescue operation, he stated, voice carrying the unmistakable tone of command rather than consultation. What we require from this council is unified support and resources, not debate on matters that can be addressed after Special Jonin Mitarashi's safe return. Koharu's lips pressed into a thin line of displeasure. The council should have been consulted before such authorization was granted. There was no time, Kakashi replied simply. And some decisions fall under the Hokage's direct military authority rather than council oversight. This is one of them. The subtle power struggle hung in the air for a tense moment before Hamura sighed, conceding the point with obvious reluctance. What resources are required for this operation? He asked, redirecting the conversation to more practical matters. Relief coursed through Naruto as the discussion shifted toward logistics, intelligence sharing, and coordination between clan specialties. The political fallout from his secret marriage would undoubtedly resurface later. But for now, Konoha's leadership was focusing on what truly mattered, bringing Anko home safely. As the council mapped out support for the rescue operation, Naruto felt Sasuke's presence materialize beside him. The Uchiha leaned close, voice pitched for Naruto's ears alone. While you've been in here, Sakura sent word from the medical lab, he murmured. She and Tsunade have identified a potential countermeasure for Kabuto's seal manipulation. It's experimental, but theoretically viable. Hope flared in Naruto's chest. How soon can it be ready? That's the problem, Sasuke replied grimly. They need a genetic sample from you, specifically, chakra-infused blood. The countermeasure requires a fusion of your healing properties with targeted medical ninjutsu. Naruto frowned in confusion. Why would my blood help Anko's seal? Because according to Tsunade, your regular physical contact with Anko has already created a baseline chakra harmony between you, Sasuke explained, clearly reciting information rather than fully understanding it himself. Your intimate relationship means your chakra signatures have begun to naturally synchronize in ways that can be medically exploited. Despite the gravity of the situation, heat crept up Naruto's neck at the clinical reference to his and Anko's private life. She can have whatever samples she needs. As soon as this meeting ends, Sasuke nodded, then added with uncharacteristic hesitation, there's something else. Something I noticed about Anko's message that I think you missed. Naruto glanced at him sharply. What? The reference to your first night together, at that inn, Sasuke continued, choosing his words carefully. You said it was outside Konoha's boundaries, completely anonymous. Right, Naruto confirmed, uncertain where this was heading. Think, Naruto, Sasuke pressed. If it was truly anonymous, if no one knew you were there together, why specifically reference it in a coded message about who might be watching or betraying you? The implication hit like a physical blow. Someone had known about that first night. Someone had observed them even then, at the very beginning of their relationship. The leak wasn't recent, it stretched back to the origins of their connection. We need to look into who else was in that town that night, Naruto whispered, cold realization spreading through him. Every mission report, every travel log, already initiated, Sasuke confirmed. Shikamaru's cross-referencing village records now. The council meeting continued around them, tactical details being established, intelligence being pooled, but Naruto's mind raced ahead, reassessing everything in light of this new understanding. If they'd been watched from the beginning, every precaution they'd taken had been compromised from the start, which meant Kabuto might be anticipating their rescue strategies based on months of accumulated intelligence. They needed to do something completely unexpected, something no spy could have predicted because Naruto himself wouldn't have considered it until now. As the council meeting drew to a close, Naruto approached Kakashi with renewed determination. I need to speak with Orochimaru, he said without preamble. Kakashi's visible eye widened slightly, the only indication of his surprise. Orochimaru? Why? Because he knows Kabuto better than anyone, Naruto explained, the plan crystallizing as he spoke. And he has more insight into the curse seal than even Tsunade. If anyone can tell us precisely what Kabuto might be doing to Anko, it's him. Orochimaru's cooperation is unpredictable at best, Kakashi cautioned. and his current location is only approximately known. Sasuke can find him, Naruto insisted, glancing at his friend for confirmation. Sasuke nodded once. I maintain certain channels of communication. For monitoring purposes. Kakashi studied them both for a long moment, weighing options and risks with the rapid calculation of an experienced leader. Finally, he inclined his head in assent. Proceed with extreme caution, he advised. Orochimaru may provide assistance or complications in equal measure. And Naruto, he added, his voice softening slightly, remember that Anko's history with her former sensei is complex. Any solution he offers will come with invisible strings attached. I understand, Naruto acknowledged grimly. But for Anko, I'll deal with the devil himself if necessary. As they exited the council chamber, Naruto caught snippets of conversation from village shinobi gathered in the hallway. Whispers about his secret marriage spreading like wildfire through Konoha. Speculation, surprise, and inevitable judgment colored the hushed exchanges. But for the first time since this crisis began, Naruto felt a strange sense of liberation amid the chaos. The weight of secrecy had been lifted, replaced by the clearer, sharper burden of action. No more hiding, no more careful navigations of public versus private personas. Now there was only the mission: find Anko, neutralize Kabuto, bring his wife home. Everything else, the political fallout, the public opinion, the future implications for his path to becoming Hokage, could wait. What mattered now was the woman who had seen beyond the hero to the man beneath, who had trusted him with her darkest fears and brightest hopes. The woman who had chosen him, just as he had chosen her, and Naruto Uzumaki never, ever abandoned those he loved. Dawn broke over Konoha in shattered fragments of crimson and gold, the lights spilling across rooftops still slick with last night's rain. Steam rose from the village in ghostly tendrils, creating a surreal landscape of half-formed phantoms twisting toward the brightening sky. In this ethereal fog, 5 figures moved like shadows, converging on the western gate with the practiced stealth that marked elite shinobi. Naruto crouched on a water tower, the metal cool beneath his fingertips as he surveyed the village perimeter. His traditional orange had been discarded in favor of standard issue ENBU blacks. Anonymity over identity. The fabric clung to his muscled frame, still damp from his sprint through dew-soaked forest. Below, Sasuke materialized from a side street, his lone arm resting casually on the hilt of his sword. Sakura emerged moments later, medical pack strapped firmly across her back, her expression set in lines of grim determination. Shikamaru and Sai completed the gathering, arriving simultaneously from opposite directions. 5 of Konoha's most formidable shinobi, assembled for a mission that officially didn't exist. Naruto dropped from his perch, landing in a silent crouch beside his team. No words were exchanged. They'd spent half the night planning, every contingency examined with excruciating precision. Now, in the gauzy light of morning, only execution remained. The decoy team leaves through the eastern gate in 30 minutes, Shikamaru murmured, voice barely audible above the gentle hiss of mist dissolving in strengthening sunlight. ENBU is ensuring it's appropriately observed. Kakashi's strategy was elegant in its simplicity. Let the traitor believe they knew nothing, feed them exactly what they expected to see, a rescue team departing with an obvious lack of stealth. Meanwhile, the real operation would proceed from the opposite direction, masking their true objective behind layers of misdirection. Any word from your contact? Sakura asked, her green eyes finding Sasuke's mismatched gaze. Orochimaru will meet us at the rendezvous point, Sasuke confirmed, distaste flickering across his aristocratic features. Though I wouldn't call him a contact so much as a necessary evil. Naruto's jaw tightened at the mention of the serpentine shinobi who had once claimed Anko as his prized student. The decision to involve Orochimaru had been his. But that didn't make it comfortable, especially knowing the psychological wounds Anko still carried from her time under his tutelage. He knows Kabuto better than anyone, Naruto reminded them, his voice roughened by a night without sleep. And the curse seal is his creation. We need that knowledge. No one disagreed. The stakes were too high for pride or past grievances. Anko had now been in Kabuto's hands for nearly 36 hours. 36 hours of torture, experimentation, and manipulation of the curse seal remnants in her system. Twice more since the council meeting, Naruto had experienced phantom bursts of her pain, each episode more intense than the last. The connection between them, whatever its nature, was strengthening rather than fading with time and distance. Remember, Shikamaru cautioned, we move only as fast as our intelligence allows. Rushing without accurate information gets us all killed. And helps no one, Sakura added softly, her hand finding Naruto's shoulder in a gesture that somehow conveyed both comfort and warning. Naruto nodded stiffly. The battle between his heart and his head had reached a temporary truce. tactical necessity overriding emotional impulse, if only by the thinnest of margins. But the primal part of him, the part that had merged with Kurama's consciousness through years of partnership, remained a wild, churning fury beneath the surface. He could feel the Nine-Tails chakra responding to his distress, tendrils of golden energy occasionally rippling beneath his skin when his concentration slipped. "I'm good," he assured them, though the set of Sasuke's shoulders suggested his oldest friend remained unconvinced. "Let's move." As one, they slipped through the western gate, vanishing into the forest beyond like smoke swallowed by wind. In a subterranean chamber 3 days' journey north of Konoha, Anko Mitarashi fought to remain conscious. Her body hung suspended in a cylindrical tank, viscous green fluid surrounding her like a womb made of poison. Breathing tubes forced oxygen into her lungs, while a complex array of wires and needles penetrated her skin at precise chakra points. Her purple hair floated around her face in a macabre halo, occasionally obscuring her view of the laboratory beyond the curved glass. This nightmare was achingly familiar, an echo of her past under Orochimaru's care. But where her former master had at least maintained clinical detachment during his experiments, Kabuto brought a personal fervor to his work that made it infinitely more disturbing. "Fascinating," the silver-haired medic murmured, pressing a hand against the glass as he observed the readouts from the monitoring equipment. "Your cells are responding to the stimulus with unprecedented adaptability. The dormant seal fragments have fully reintegrated with your chakra network." Anko couldn't respond verbally, but she channeled every ounce of loathing into her glare. Kabuto merely smiled, the light reflecting off his round glasses in a way that momentarily obscured his eyes. "Oh, don't look so unhappy, Anko-san," he chided, as if they were colleagues disagreeing over research methods rather than captor and captive. "You're contributing to groundbreaking advancements in chakra manipulation. And providing such an excellent lure for Naruto-kun, of course." The mention of Naruto sent a fresh surge of rage through Anko's system. The monitoring equipment immediately registered the spike in her chakra, causing Kabuto to chuckle with genuine delight. "Such a protective response. Your emotional connection to the Jinchuriki runs even deeper than our intelligence suggested." He made a notation on his clipboard. "I wonder if he feels the same intensity?" "We'll find out soon enough." Anko forced her mind to clear, drawing on years of training in resisting interrogation. Emotional reactions gave Kabuto data. Data gave him power. She needed to remain calm, conserve her strength, watch for openings. Naruto would be coming. Of that she had no doubt, but she refused to be a passive damsel awaiting rescue. She'd survived Orochimaru at his most creative. She would survive his overeager disciple, especially since Kabuto had made a critical error in his calculations. He'd left her conscious. While he busied himself with adjustments to the equipment, Anko focused on the burning sensation radiating from her neck. The reactivated seal fragments pulsed beneath her skin like embers threatening to burst into flame. Most would consider this agony a weakness, a vulnerability to be exploited. But Anko had spent years studying the curse seal from the inside out, learning its pathways, understanding its mechanisms. If Kabuto could reactivate it, she could potentially control it, or at least redirect its energy. Not enough to escape, perhaps, but enough to create chaos when opportunity presented itself. The opportunity, she suspected, would arrive with Naruto. And if the flash of familiar chakra she'd sensed at the edges of her consciousness was any indication, that moment was approaching faster than Kabuto realized. "I'll leave you to process the latest compound," Kabuto announced, setting down his clipboard. "The next phase requires some preparation. We want everything perfect for when your husband arrives." He paused at the laboratory door, turning back with a smile that didn't reach his calculating eyes. "Oh, and Anko-san? I've taken the liberty of analyzing the unique chakra signature that's been developing between you and Naruto-kun. Such an interesting phenomenon, almost like a living bridge connecting your energy systems. I wonder what happens if that bridge is severed." The door sealed behind him with a pneumatic hiss, leaving Anko alone with the steady bubble of fluid and the rhythmic beep of monitoring equipment. She closed her eyes, focusing inward to the core of heat that had once been Orochimaru's mark of ownership. Beneath the pain lay something unexpected, a golden thread of warmth that didn't belong to her, a tendril of energy so distinctly Naruto that its presence felt like a physical touch. Kabuto's right about one thing, she thought grimly. There is a connection. But he's wrong about being able to sever it, because what neither Kabuto nor perhaps even Naruto fully understood was the true nature of what happened when an Uzumaki's chakra, especially one containing the Nine-Tails, intertwined with another's over months of intimate contact. Such connections weren't merely emotional or physical. They became something living, something that developed its own will to survive. Anko allowed herself the ghost of a smile around her breathing apparatus. Kabuto thought he was the hunter, but he'd inadvertently caged himself with his prey. And when the trap finally sprung, he discovered just how dangerous cornered snakes could be, especially one with the power of the nine tails flowing through her veins. Miles away, Naruto's team moved through the forest canopy at breakneck speed, each shinobi a blur of motion against the emerald backdrop. They traveled in standard diamond formation, Sai at point, creating periodic ink birds to scout ahead, Shikamaru and Sakura on the flanks, maintaining sensory awareness of their surroundings, Naruto and Sasuke bringing up the rear, ready to counter any pursuit. The forest gradually thinned as they pushed northward, terrain shifting from Fire Country's lush woodlands to the rockier landscapes that marked the border territories. By midday, they'd covered ground that would take average shinobi a full day to traverse. By sunset, they'd reached the first rendezvous point, a nondescript clearing nestled between two weathered cliffs, offering natural protection and limited approach vectors. No signs of pursuit, Sai reported, landing lightly beside Naruto as his ink bird dissolved into wisps of black that faded against the darkening sky. And no indication our departure was observed. That's what concerns me, Shikamaru muttered, dropping from a nearby tree and rolling his shoulders to release the tension of hours of high-speed travel. Either our counterintelligence worked too well, or they already knew our real plan and let us leave unobserved, Sasuke finished, crimson Sharingan slowly fading to black as he completed his own perimeter check. Naruto crouched at the center of the clearing, fingers pressed against the earth as he extended his sensory abilities, a technique he'd refined during the war, allowing him to detect hostile intent within a substantial radius. The forest around them felt empty, but not peaceful. The natural rhythm of wildlife had been disrupted, suggesting recent human activity. Someone's been here, he confirmed, rising fluidly to his feet. Within the last few hours. No more than 3 people, moving fast, heading north, same direction we're going. Akatsuki sympathizers? Sakura suggested, already unpacking medical supplies for a quick check of everyone's condition before they continued. Or Kabuto's agents, Sasuke countered. Either way, we should assume our general direction is compromised, if not our specific route. Shikamaru nodded, his expression thoughtful as he withdrew a small scroll from his weapons pouch. Time to implement Contingency 2. The scroll contained a pre-prepared summoning circle, a modified version of a technique developed by the Nara clan for shadow manipulation across vast distances. With a series of precise hand signs, Shikamaru activated the seal, causing the ink to shimmer and reform into a 3-dimensional map of the surrounding 50 miles. We are here, he indicated, a small blue light pulsing at their current position. Kabuto's facility, based on intelligence and Anko's message, should be here. A red light appeared approximately 30 miles further north. The original plan was to approach from the west, avoiding the most obvious defensive perimeters. But if they're anticipating that route, Sakura began. We split, Naruto interrupted, azure eyes fixed on the glowing map with unsettling intensity. 3 groups, 3 approach vectors. Maximum confusion. Shikamaru hesitated, clearly weighing tactical advantages against increased vulnerability. That's Contingency 4. We haven't confirmed enemy numbers yet to justify that level of risk. We can't wait for perfect intelligence, Naruto insisted, a thread of Kurama's growl infiltrating his voice. Every hour gives Kabuto more time to prepare, and more time to hurt Anko. A tense silence fell over the group. They'd all witnessed Naruto's episodes of phantom pain, the connection to Anko growing stronger with each occurrence. The last attack had hit during their journey, bringing Naruto to his knees mid-leap, nearly sending him plummeting from the canopy before Sasuke caught him with lightning-quick reflexes. What does your gut tell you? Sasuke asked Shikamaru directly, bypassing the brewing argument. Not your tactical mind, your instinct. Shikamaru's dark eyes flicked between the map and Naruto, calculation giving way to something more primal. That we're being herded, he admitted reluctantly. That every discovery we've made has been deliberately placed in our path. Which means, Kabuto wants us to reach the facility, Naruto concluded grimly. He's been manipulating our choices from the beginning. Then we don't make the choices he expects, Sakura determined, her voice taking on the sharp edge of decision that had marked her growth from uncertain genin to formidable medical nin. If he wants us to arrive together, we split up. If he expects us from the west, we come from 3 directions. If he thinks we're rushing in, we take our time and do this right, Sasuke finished, the ghost of a smile touching his lips as he recognized the strategy taking shape. Naruto looked as if he might object, the tension in his body screaming urgency. But Sakura stepped directly into his line of sight, green eyes locking with blue. Listen to me, Naruto, she said, voice firm but kind. I know what you're feeling, literally feeling, through whatever connection exists between you and Anko. But charging in on emotion is exactly what Kabuto wants. He's studied you for years. He knows your patterns, your reactions. The only way to save Anko is to be someone he doesn't recognize. The words hit their mark. Naruto's shoulders slackened slightly, the volcanic fury in his eyes banking to a controlled burn. You're right, he acknowledged, each syllable clearly costing him effort. So what's the new plan? Before anyone could respond, a silken voice cut through the gathering darkness. The new plan should account for Kabuto's scientific methodology. He's nothing if not meticulous in his preparations. The team whirled toward the source, weapons instantly in hand, to find Orochimaru standing at the clearing's edge. The legendary Sannin looked exactly as he always did, ageless, unnervingly serene, with golden snake eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. He wore simple travel attire, a stark contrast to the elaborate costumes he'd favored during his days as Konoha's most wanted criminal. Right on time, Sasuke remarked dryly, though the tension in his stance betrayed his discomfort at his former master's appearance. Orochimaru's thin lips curved in what might have been amusement. Punctuality is a virtue often overlooked, Sasuke-kun. His gaze slid to Naruto, assessment written in every line of his face. The future Hokage, seeking my assistance. How deliciously ironic. I'm not here for me, Naruto replied flatly, making no effort to hide his distaste. I'm here for Anko. Ah yes. My former student. Orochimaru moved into the clearing with liquid grace, seemingly unconcerned by the weapons still trained on him. And your wife, I understand. An interesting pairing. The village pariah and the monster's disciple, finding comfort in shared isolation. Quite poetic, really. Sakura took a half step forward, clearly fighting the urge to plant her fist in the Sannin's smirking face. We didn't bring you here for commentary on their relationship. No, you brought me here for my intimate knowledge of two things, Orochimaru countered smoothly. Kabuto Yakushi and the Curse Seal. Fortunately for you, I'm something of an expert on both. He gestured toward Shikamaru's shadow map, and after a moment's hesitation, the tactician allowed him closer. Orochimaru studied the glowing representation with the focused attention of a scholar examining a rare text. Kabuto's facility choice is significant, he observed. This was one of my earliest laboratories, established before I officially left Konoha. Very few records of its existence remain, which means he's been planning this for quite some time, accumulating obscure intelligence. What can you tell us about the layout? Shikamaru pressed, professional interest temporarily overriding personal disgust. Orochimaru waved a pale hand, and the map responded to his chakra, expanding to reveal a complex subterranean structure beneath the surface marker. 3 levels. Entry points here, and here, he indicated. The lower chambers were designed for long-term experimentation, self-sustaining power systems, redundant life support, sealed environments that could withstand significant external attack. A fortress, Sai murmured, artistic eye appreciating the architectural precision even as the shinobi in him calculated defensive vulnerabilities. More importantly, Orochimaru continued, yellow eyes gleaming in the fading light, it contains specialized equipment for curse mark manipulation, equipment that Kabuto has likely modified for his own purposes. Naruto's fists clenched, knuckles widening. What exactly is he doing to Anko? Why reactivate fragments of a seal that was removed years ago? For the first time, Orochimaru's expression shifted from clinical detachment to something approaching genuine interest. That is the fascinating question, isn't it? The curse seal fundamentally alters cellular structure and chakra pathways, changes that remain even after the visible mark is removed. In theory, those alterations could be reawakened, with the right stimulus. That's what Tsunade and I concluded, Sakura confirmed, professional curiosity momentarily overcoming her revulsion. But the seal's primary purpose was power enhancement through corrupted natural energy. What would Kabuto gain by reactivating it in someone who's already rejected its influence? Orochimaru's smile widened, revealing teeth too sharp to be entirely human. Oh, but that's where Kabuto has shown true creativity. He's not simply reactivating the original seal, he's repurposing it. Creating a conduit. A conduit for what? Sasuke demanded, Sharingan flaring to life as understanding began to dawn. For the Nine-Tails chakra, of course, Orochimaru replied, as if explaining something obvious to slow students. Haven't you wondered why Naruto-kun has been experiencing sympathetic pain? Why the connection between them strengthens rather than weakens with distance? Naruto's blood turned to ice in his veins. He's using Anko to get to Kurama's chakra. To me, more precisely, Orochimaru corrected, he's creating a bridge between your chakra systems. The curse seal creates perfect conditions. It's designed to absorb and transform external energy. Add to that the natural chakra harmonization that occurs between longtime intimates. especially when one partner contains such potent energy as a tailed beast. He's building a trap that doesn't require Naruto to be physically present, Shikamaru concluded, the tactical implications unfurling in his expression. If he can complete this chakra bridge, he could potentially extract Nine Tails' energy through Anko, or use her as a trigger to disrupt Naruto's control. Sakura's medical mind made the final connection. That's why he let Anko send that message. He needs Naruto close enough to strengthen the connection, but not necessarily in the same room. The curse seal acts as an amplifier. A terrible silence descended as the full scope of Kabuto's plan became clear. Naruto stood motionless, expression hardening into something that made even Orochimaru take a subtle step back. Can it be reversed? Naruto finally asked, each word precision carved from stone. Orochimaru tilted his head, considering. Theoretically. The bridge flows both ways. What Kabuto intends to use as an extraction method could instead become a purging mechanism. With the right application of medical ninjutsu and seal manipulation. I need specifics, Sakura interrupted, already withdrawing scrolls and medical implements from her pack. Exact chakra frequencies, cellular response patterns, everything you know about how the curse seal interfaces with foreign energy. While Sakura and Orochimaru fell into intense technical discussion, Naruto moved to the edge of the clearing, staring northward as if he could pierce the miles between himself and Anko through sheer force of will. He felt Sasuke approach but didn't turn, recognizing his friend's chakra signature as easily as his own. We'll get her back, Sasuke said quietly, the simple statement carrying more weight than elaborate reassurances. I know, Naruto replied, gaze still fixed on the distant horizon. But will she still be herself when we do? Sasuke's hand landed on his shoulder, the pressure firm and grounding. Anko survived Orochimaru at his worst. She rejected the cursed seal once before, and now she has something she didn't have then. What's that? Something worth fighting to come back to. Sasuke's words were simple, but the emotion behind them, from someone who understood loss and redemption better than most, hit Naruto with unexpected force. Behind them, the tactical discussion continued, plans reforming around their new understanding of Kabuto's true objective. Sai's brush danced across scrolls, creating detailed maps from Orochimaru's descriptions. Shikamaru's shadow techniques plotted approach vectors and timing sequences. Sakura absorbed everything the snake Sennin shared about curse seal manipulation, her brilliant mind adapting medical protocols in real time. But Naruto's awareness had narrowed to a single point of heat in his chest, the connection to Anko that Kabuto had inadvertently strengthened rather than exploited. Closing his eyes, he reached for that warmth, not with chakra or jutsu, but with something more fundamental, raw, unfiltered emotion. I'm coming for you, he projected into the void, knowing it was probably futile, probably nothing more than desperate wishful thinking. Hold on just a little longer. To his shock, something answered, not words, not coherent thought, but a pulse of determined defiance so distinctly Anko that a startled laugh escaped him. The sensation disappeared as quickly as it had come, leaving him wondering if he'd imagined it. But in the space where doubt should have flourished, certainty bloomed instead. Anko wasn't just surviving, she was fighting. And if there was one thing Naruto Uzumaki understood, it was how to join someone's fight. In the laboratory, Anko's eyes snapped open, momentarily disorientating the technician monitoring her vital signs. For just an instant, the readouts had spiked across the board, heart rate, chakra flow, neural activity, before settling back into their previous patterns. The technician made a notation in the log, then resumed his board surveillance, missing the subtle change in his subject's expression. Beneath the breathing apparatus, Anko's lips curved in the ghost of a smile. The message had been wordless but unmistakable. Naruto's unique chakra signature, his indomitable spirit, reaching for her across the miles. More importantly, she'd managed to respond, to push a fragment of her own consciousness back along that golden thread. The connection worked both ways, just as she'd suspected. And what Kabuto had designed as a weapon could instead become their salvation, if she could maintain control of her end of the bridge. She redirected her focus to the cursed seal fragments pulsing beneath her skin. The pain remained intense, but now she embraced it, using it as a focal point rather than trying to resist it. Years ago, she'd rejected Orochimaru's power as corrupting, as fundamentally opposed to her own nature. But Naruto's chakra was different. It amplified rather than suppressed, strengthened rather than subjugated. Carefully, meticulously, she began to adjust her own chakra flow, creating subtle patterns that the monitoring equipment wouldn't detect as anomalous. The process was excruciating, requiring precision that taxed her discipline to its limits. One misstep would alert Kabuto that she was actively manipulating the bridge he thought was under his exclusive control. Hours passed in this delicate dance of energy and will. Technicians came and went. Automated systems pumped new compounds into her suspension fluid. Somewhere beyond her immediate awareness, Kabuto continued preparations for the next phase of his experiment. None of them noticed the microscopic fractures forming in the glass of her containment tank. Fractures stemming from points where her skin pressed against the surface, where concentrated chakra leaked through the seal fragments in patterns too subtle for standard sensors to detect. It wouldn't be enough to free her, not yet. But when the moment came, when Naruto and the others arrived, the structural integrity of her prison would be compromised enough to shatter with a single surge of the Nine-Tails chakra. The hunter had indeed become the hunted. Kabuto just didn't know it yet. Dawn of the second day found Naruto's team positioned in 3 separate locations around Kabuto's facility, each group maintaining communication through sizing creatures, small birds that could travel undetected between their positions, dissolving into message scrolls upon arrival. Naruto and Sakura occupied the northern approach, concealed in a rock formation that offered direct line of sight to what appeared to be the main entrance. A reinforced door, built into the mountainside, guarded by 4 figures wearing the telltale red armbands of Akatsuki sympathizers. 6 rotations since we arrived, Sakura murmured, making another mark in her small notebook. 4-hour shifts, 2 guards always visible, 2 in reserve inside the entrance chamber. Naruto nodded, his attention split between their surveillance and the steady thrum of connection he now maintained with Anko. Throughout the night, he'd felt occasional pulses of her consciousness, not thoughts or images, but emotional states and bursts of focused intention. It was both maddening and miraculous, this wordless communication across miles and barriers. She's working on something, he whispered, more to himself than to Sakura. I can feel her concentrating, channeling chakra in specific patterns. Sakura's green eyes flicked to him, professional interest warring with concern. The countermeasure Orochimaru helped me develop is ready, but it requires direct physical contact with both you and Anko. We need to be in the same room. We will be, Naruto assured her with quiet confidence. Sasuke and Sai should be in position by now. Shikamaru and Orochimaru will have completed their assessment of the eastern approach. Orochimaru's inclusion in the actual infiltration had been contentious, with Naruto initially opposing it vehemently. But the Sanin's intimate knowledge of the facility's design, combined with his unparalleled expertise in both Kabuto's psychology and the Curse Seal, had ultimately made his participation necessary. That didn't mean Naruto had to like it, especially knowing how traumatic Orochimaru's presence would be for Anko. You still don't trust him, Sakura observed, correctly reading Naruto's expression. Would you? He countered, azure eyes never leaving the facility entrance. He tortured Anko for years. Used her as a living experiment, discarded her when she rejected his power. And now he's conveniently willing to help rescue her? Sakura's expression softened with understanding. Of course I don't trust him. But I trust his self-interest, which for now aligns with our goals. Kabuto possessing Nine-Tails chakra threatens Orochimaru's position in the power hierarchy. He won't allow that. Before Naruto could respond, one of Sai's ink birds materialized beside them, dissolving into a small scroll that Sakura immediately unrolled. Sasuke reports underground movement on the western perimeter, she read, brow furrowing. Thermal scanning shows significant heat signatures 3 levels down, consistent with major chakra usage or large-scale medical equipment. That's where they're holding her, Naruto stated with certainty, the connection in his chest pulsing in confirmation. The deepest level, central chamber. Sakura rolled the scroll further. Shikamaru and our other asset have identified what appears to be a secondary entrance, disguised as a natural cave formation. Minimal guard presence, but heavy jutsu-based security. Traps? Almost certainly. But potentially our best ingress point. She reached the end of the message and looked up, determination hardening her features. They're recommending we move tonight, during the guard rotation at 0200 hours. Simultaneous breach at 3 points. Naruto's hand drifted to the specialized sealing tags tucked into his weapons pouch. Sakura's medical countermeasure, enhanced with seal work developed through Orochimaru's guidance and Naruto's own chakra. Their best hope for severing the chakra bridge Kabuto had constructed between him and Anko without causing catastrophic backlash to either of them. Tonight, he agreed, already calculating angles of approach, timing sequences, contingencies for when, not if, things went sideways. We should begin working our way closer, establishing final positions before sundown. Sakura nodded, already packing away their surveillance equipment with practiced efficiency. I'll send confirmation to the others. As she prepared a response scroll, Naruto closed his eyes, focusing once more on the golden thread of connection that linked him to Anko. This time, he deliberately pushed a simple message along that bridge. Tonight. The response came almost immediately, a pulse of acknowledgement and readiness that carried Anko's unmistakable signature, part determination, part controlled aggression, part tactical precision. She understood. She would be ready. Naruto smiled grimly as he opened his eyes, a dangerous glint hardening his normally warm blue gaze. Kabuto had spent months studying him, predicting his reactions, anticipating his moves. But there was one critical variable the medic Nin had failed to account for in his calculations. Anko Mitarashi was nobody's damsel in distress. She was a kunoichi who had survived being Orochimaru's student, who had built a career striking from shadows and turning opponents' strengths against them. And Kabuto was about to discover exactly why Naruto had fallen in love with her in the first place. Deep within the facility, alarms suddenly blared, red emergency lights bathing the sterile corridors in crimson. Kabuto looked up from his workstation, irritation flashing across his features as a subordinate burst into the laboratory. "Sir, we have a perimeter breach on the western approach. ENBU signatures detected. At least 2, possibly more." "Right on schedule," Kabuto remarked, returning his attention to the complex array of seals he'd been inscribing around Anko's containment tank. "Activate defensive protocols. Engage the sympathizers on the outer rings." "But sir, they're not actually breaching from the west," Kabuto interrupted, a smug smile playing across his lips. "That's a diversion. Uzumaki will come from below, the maintenance tunnels. His team discovered them approximately 43 minutes ago, though they think their reconnaissance went undetected." The subordinate blinked in confusion. "How can you be so certain?" "Because I've spent months studying how he thinks, how he plans, how he reacts when someone he loves is threatened." Kabuto adjusted his glasses, light reflecting off the lenses to momentarily obscure his eyes. "Besides, we've been tracking their movements since they left Konoha. Did you really think Orochimaru-sama came of his own accord? He's been my unwitting messenger all along." The subordinate's eyes widened. "You've been manipulating Orochimaru-sama?" Kabuto's laugh echoed against the laboratory walls, high and sharp. "Not directly, even I'm not that foolish. But information has a way of finding the right ears when properly planted. My network ensured Orochimaru learned exactly what I wanted him to know about this facility, and my plans for Anko-san." Inside her tank, Anko's eyes narrowed. The revelation cut through her like a poisoned kunai. Orochimaru wasn't just involved, he was being played, which meant their entire rescue strategy might be compromised before it even began. "What about the chakra bridge?" the subordinate asked, glancing nervously at the containment system. "Is it stable enough for extraction?" Kabuto's expression shifted from smug satisfaction to focused intensity. "Almost. The final calibration requires proximity. Uzumaki needs to be close enough for the resonance effect to amplify. When he reaches the lower levels," he swept his hand toward an elaborate array of equipment surrounding Anko's tank. "The Nine Tails chakra will begin flowing freely across the bridge we've constructed. Quite literally, his love for her will be his undoing." Anko fought to keep her expression neutral, even as rage boiled through her veins. Her fingers twitched against the glass, continuing the subtle work of creating micropunctures in the containment system. She'd need to accelerate her efforts. If Naruto and the others were walking into a trap calibrated by Orochimaru's unwitting intelligence, their timetable had just collapsed. "Now," Kabuto instructed, turning to a panel of monitors displaying various sections of the facility, "deploy squads 3 and 5 to the eastern approach. That's where they'll actually attempt their primary breach, not the tunnels. Naruto is predictably unpredictable. He'll anticipate that I'm anticipating him." The subordinate hesitated. "But you just said..." "I said exactly what I wanted the subject to hear," Kabuto hissed, eyes flicking meaningfully toward Anko's tank. "Do you think I don't know she's conscious? That she hasn't been systematically testing the connection to her husband?" Ice flooded Anko's veins. He knew. He'd known all along. Kabuto approached her tank, placing his palm flat against the glass, his face inches from hers. "You've been quite clever, Anko-san. Those microfractures might have worked, if I hadn't designed this system specifically to accommodate your particular skills. Every action you've taken has actually strengthened the bridge, channeling your chakra exactly as I intended." His smile widened, revealing teeth too perfect, too white. "But please continue your efforts. The more you fight, the stronger the connection becomes. The more desperately you reach for him, the more completely I can extract what I need when he arrives." Kabuto turned away, his lab coat snapping with the abrupt movement. "Deploy all squads as outlined in Protocol 7. And prepare the secondary containment system. We'll need it operational within the hour." As the subordinate scurried away, Kabuto cast one final glance at Anko, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Soon your husband will arrive, full of righteous fury and desperate love. And you, my dear, will be the instrument of his undoing. The door sealed behind him, leaving Anko alone with the terrible knowledge that everything, her attempts to communicate, her efforts to sabotage the containment system, even her determination to fight back, had played directly into Kabuto's hands. But as despair threatened to overwhelm her, something unexpected pulsed along the golden thread connecting her to Naruto. Not words, not even emotions, but a familiar sensation that made her eyes widen behind her breathing apparatus. Shadow clones. Dozens of them, their chakra signatures blurred together yet distinct from the original, creating a confusing tapestry of Naruto's energy across multiple locations. It was a strategy she recognized, one they developed together during joint training sessions months ago. Flood an area with identical chakra signatures to mask the approach of the true target, which meant Naruto had anticipated Kabuto's anticipation of his anticipation. For the first time since her capture, genuine hope flickered in Anko's chest. She closed her eyes, focusing inward on the connection between them. If Kabuto wanted her to strengthen the bridge, she would give him exactly what he asked for, but on her terms. She began channeling chakra in earnest, no longer bothering with subtlety or misdirection. Let Kabuto think he'd broken her spirit. Let him believe she'd given up on subterfuge. The truth was far more dangerous. Anko Mitarashi had just found her second wind. He knows we're coming, Sasuke stated flatly, crouched in the shadow of a massive boulder 300 yards from the eastern approach. His Sharingan gleamed in the darkness, tracking the movement of chakra signatures within the facility. Security patterns have shifted in the last 10 minutes. They're fortifying exactly where we plan to breach. Sai knelt beside him, brush poised over a small scroll. Naruto's shadow clone diversions appear to be drawing attention across multiple sectors. Guard deployment has thinned considerably on the northern perimeter. A deliberate opening, Shikamaru muttered from his position several feet away, fingers steepled in his characteristic thinking pose. They want us to take the northern route because it's most direct to the lower levels. Which means we absolutely should not take it, Orochimaru interjected smoothly, golden eyes unblinking as he studied the facility that had once been his. Kabuto has always been meticulous about layering his traps. The obvious bait conceals the true danger. Shikamaru's eyes narrowed, decades of ingrained distrust warring with tactical necessity. Your suggested alternative? Orochimaru's lips curved in a thin smile. There is a design flaw in this facility that I never corrected. A structural weakness in the northeastern quadrant where an underground spring created erosion issues. We could never fully seal it without compromising the foundation. Kabuto would have identified the flaw, of course, and prepared accordingly, Sasuke finished, skepticism evident in his tone. Precisely why he would never expect us to exploit it, Orochimaru countered. There are far more elegant points of entry. Kabuto knows I would typically avoid such a crude approach. Sai's brush moved across his scroll in swift, precise strokes. I can create ink constructs to test structural integrity without risking detection. Shikamaru nodded slowly, calculations running behind his dark eyes. Do it. But be prepared to abort at the first sign of detection. Sakura and Naruto need to be informed of the change in strategy. Already handling it, Sai replied, completing a small bird construct that flew from his scroll with a whisper of chakra. They should receive word in approximately 3 minutes. Sasuke suddenly stiffened, Sharingan flaring brighter. Movement at the main entrance. A convoy, 3 vehicles, heavily armored. Shikamaru crawled forward, squinting through the darkness. Reinforcements? No, Orochimaru murmured, something like genuine surprise flickering across his ageless features. That's a mobile containment unit. Kabuto is preparing to move Anko. The implications crashed over the team like a tsunami. Their carefully calibrated timeline had just been shredded. If Kabuto succeeded in relocating Anko to a secondary facility, they might never find her again. We need to move now, Sasuke declared, hand already reaching for his sword. Shikamaru's expression hardened into rarely seen resolve. Agreed. Sai, signal Naruto and Sakura. Tell them to create as much chaos on the northern perimeter as possible. We'll breach through this structural weakness while they draw attention. And if it's a trap? Sai asked, brush already flying across another scroll. Then we'll handle it, Shikamaru replied grimly. Because the alternative is unacceptable. Naruto felt the message arrive like a physical impact, not Sai's ink bird, which was still winging its way toward their position, but something more immediate transmitting through his connection with Anko. Images flashed through his mind, a convoy of vehicles, a mobile containment unit, Kabuto's smirking face as he ordered preparation for transport. They're moving her, he growled, the whisker marks on his cheeks deepening as Kurama's chakra responded to his sudden spike of adrenaline. Now. Tonight. Sakura's head snapped up from where she'd been preparing her medical equipment. How do you? I can see it, Naruto interrupted, pressing a palm against his chest where the connection burned like a live coal. Through her eyes. Kabuto's loading up transport vehicles. We have minutes, not hours. For a heartbeat, Sakura looked like she might question him further. Then professional efficiency took over, her hands flying to pack essential equipment, while discarding anything non-critical. What's the play? No more subtlety, Naruto decided, already forming the hand sign for his signature technique. Shadow Clone Jutsu. The forest around them erupted with dozens of identical Narutos, each crackling with barely contained energy. Hit them from every direction. Maximum chaos. I need a clear shot at the main entrance while you and the others exploit whatever weakness Orochimaru identified. That's not the plan, Sakura protested, though her body was already coiling with combat readiness. We're supposed to coordinate. The plan just changed, Naruto cut her off, voice dropping to a register that brooked no argument. I can feel her, Sakura. She's fighting from inside, creating an opportunity. But she needs us now. Something in his expression must have conveyed the urgency. Because Sakura simply nodded, adjusting the specialized sealing tags in her weapon's pouch. I'll get to her. Just make sure you don't get yourself captured in the process. Naruto's grin flashed white in the darkness, feral and determined. They're not the only ones who've been setting traps. With that, his clones exploded outward in a wave of orange and black, charging toward the facility from multiple directions. The night shattered with alarms, shouts, and the distinctive hiss of paper bombs detonating in carefully timed sequences. Naruto himself remained motionless for 3 measured heartbeats, azure eyes closed in fierce concentration. The connection to Anko burned brighter than ever, their chakra signatures resonating across the distance that separated them. But instead of fighting it or trying to control it, he surrendered to it completely, allowing his energy to flow freely along the bridge Kabuto had created. I'm coming for you, he projected, not with his mind but with his entire being. And I'm bringing the storm. What returned wasn't words but a fierce surge of acknowledgement. Anko at her most elemental, all sharp edges and deadly precision. And beneath that, something that made his heart stutter. Absolute, unwavering trust. His eyes snapped open, now ringed with the golden glow of Sage Mode enhanced by Kurama's power. Time seemed to slow around him as natural energy flowed through his system, highlighting every detail of the battlefield with crystalline clarity. The diversion was working. Guards poured from the facility, engaging his shadow clones in increasingly chaotic skirmishes. Through his connection with the clones, Naruto perceived multiple angles of the unfolding battle simultaneously. Sasuke and the others were already in motion, converging on the northeastern quadrant where Orochimaru had identified the structural weakness. No one was watching the sky. Naruto launched upward in a blur of golden chakra, the ground cratering beneath the force of his departure. He soared high above the facility, suspended for one perfect moment as he located his target. The main power generators, positioned on the facility's roof behind modest camouflage netting. Then he was falling, Rasengan spinning to life in his palm, not the standard version, but a specialized variant he developed specifically for this mission. Wind and chakra spiraled together, forming a sphere that hummed with destructive potential. Electromagnetic disruption Rasengan. He roared, driving the technique directly into the power array. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. Lightning arced across the facility's external systems as the specialized Rasengan released its payload, not just raw destructive force, but a precisely calibrated pulse that overwhelmed electrical systems and disrupted chakra-based security measures. The entire complex plunged into darkness, emergency systems failing to engage as the disruption rippled through backup generators. For 3 precious seconds, the facility was completely vulnerable, blind, deaf, and disoriented. It was all the opening Naruto needed. Inside her containment tank, Anko felt the precise moment the power failed. The constant hum of equipment fell silent. The bubbling of her suspension fluid slowed, and the monitoring systems flatlined. Emergency lighting tried to activate but sputtered weakly before dying completely. She recognized Naruto's handiwork immediately. The electromagnetic pulse that had knocked out the systems was a technique they theorized together during late-night strategy sessions in their cabin. She challenged him to develop a non-lethal approach to neutralizing large-scale threats. He'd created a Rasengan variant that specifically targeted electrical and chakra-based systems. Now it was her turn to fulfill her part of their unspoken strategy. With the monitoring equipment offline, she no longer needed to conceal her actions. She channeled chakra directly into the microscopic fractures she'd been creating in the glass, focusing everything she had into the weakest points of the containment system. Under normal circumstances, even these concentrated efforts wouldn't be enough to breach the reinforced material. But these weren't normal circumstances. Anko reached along the connection to Naruto, their bridge now glowing white-hot in her consciousness. For weeks, Kabuto had forced her body to absorb and process Ninetales' chakra, believing he was creating a conduit for extraction. What he hadn't understood was that this process had gradually altered her own chakra network, allowing her to temporarily channel Kurama's energy in small bursts. She grabbed that power now, pulling a thread of corrosive red chakra through their connection. It burned like acid through her system, her body not designed to contain a tailed beast's energy. But she needed it for just one moment, just long enough to amplify her own chakra beyond normal human limits. The tank shuddered as golden red energy surged through the fracture lines she'd created. Glass groaned, then spiderwebbed with cracks that spread outward from multiple impact points. Suspension fluid began to seep through the fissures, pressure dropping as the containment system's integrity failed. With a final surge of combined chakra, Anko pushed outward with everything she had. The tank exploded in a shower of glass and fluid, alarms wailing as backup systems finally engaged. Emergency lighting cast the laboratory in pulsing red shadows as Anko tore the breathing apparatus from her face, gasping in her first unfiltered breath in days. Her legs buckled as she hit the floor, muscles weak from disuse and the aftereffects of channeling Kurama's chakra. The medical gown Kabuto had dressed her in clung to her skin, soaked with suspension fluid that reeked of chemicals and medicinal compounds. She had perhaps 30 seconds before response teams arrived. 30 seconds to orient herself and find a defensible position. Her eyes scanned the laboratory, instantly cataloging potential weapons, exits, and choke points with the precision that had made her one of Konoha's elite special jonin. A cabinet of medical implements stood against the far wall. Anko staggered toward it, each step stronger than the last as her body remembered its training. By the time she reached the cabinet, her movements had regained their fluid grace. She yanked the doors open, revealing rows of scalpels, syringes, and specialized tools she didn't recognize. Good enough. She armed herself with a handful of scalpels, positioning them between her fingers in a makeshift approximation of Saban needles. A surgical tubing became an improvised garrote. A bottle of disinfectant and a lighter found in a desk drawer transformed into a crude but effective incendiary device. The laboratory door burst open just as she finished preparations. 2 guards rushed in, eyes widening at the sight of their supposedly helpless prisoner standing amid the wreckage of her containment system, armed and radiating killing intent. Anko's smile was all teeth and predatory anticipation. "Gentlemen," she purred, voice rough from disuse but dripping with lethal promise, "I've had a really difficult few days." The guards raised their weapons, but they were already too late. Anko moved like liquid shadow, closing the distance before either could squeeze off a shot. The first went down with surgical precision, scalpels finding the junction between shoulder and neck. The second managed to fire a wild shot that shattered glass equipment before Anko's improvised garrote cut off both his air and his consciousness. She appropriated their weapons and communication devices, quickly assessing her options. The facility would be in chaos now, caught between responding to Naruto's external assault and dealing with her unexpected liberation. Her best move would be to work her way upward, creating additional disruption while moving toward the rescue team. The floor suddenly trembled beneath her feet, a massive impact somewhere below. Through their connection, she felt Naruto drawing deeper on Kurama's power. The rescue wasn't going as planned. Something had changed. Anko checked the stolen weapons, a standard-issue kunai launcher and a dozen explosive tags. Not much, but it would have to do. She moved toward the laboratory door, muscles coiling with renewed purpose. Kabuto had spent days probing her mind, studying her techniques, analyzing her weaknesses. But he'd made a critical miscalculation. He'd been so focused on using her as bait that he'd forgotten she was also a predator in her own right. And predators were never more dangerous than when cornered. Kabuto sprinted through the facility's lower corridors, rage distorting his typically composed features. Backup generators were finally engaging, but the damage was done, security systems compromised, containment protocols disrupted, and worst of all, his primary subject had escaped. "Find her." He snarled into a communication device as he rounded a corner. "Every available unit, converge on level 2. She must not reach the upper levels." Static answered him, punctuated by fragments of panicked reports. The eastern perimeter had been breached. Multiple Naruto signatures detected across all sectors. An unidentified team penetrating through the northeastern foundation. Everything was unraveling. Months of careful planning, disrupted by variables he hadn't properly accounted for. The rage building inside him threatened to cloud his judgment, but Kabuto ruthlessly suppressed it. Emotion was inefficient. Adaptation was survival. He skidded to a halt before a reinforced door marked with biohazard symbols, pressing his palm against the scanner that glowed weakly in the emergency lighting. The door hissed open, revealing his contingency lab, smaller than the main facility, but equipped with the essential apparatus for his most critical work. Prepare for emergency relocation, he ordered the 2 technicians inside, who jumped at his sudden appearance. Priority samples and equipment only. We have less than 5 minutes. As they scrambled to comply, Kabuto moved to a specialized containment unit at the center of the room. Unlike the tank that had housed Anko, this device was compact, portable, and shielded with multiple layers of chakra-dampening technology. Inside, suspended in a viscous blue fluid, floated what appeared to be a tiny fragment of pulsing tissue, either fully solid nor entirely liquid, continuously shifting between states. "At least I have what I really came for," he murmured, fingers tracing reverent patterns across the unit's control panel. A viable sample of harmonized chakra. For all Anko's significance as bait, she had served a far more important purpose, producing a fusion of Ninetales chakra and her own unique energy signature, processed through the modified pathways created by Orochimaru's curse seal. This sample, extracted during her unconscious periods, was the true prize. With it, Kabuto could continue his research independently, no longer needing either Anko or Naruto physically present. The facility shook again, dust raining from the ceiling as impacts resonated through the structure. They were running out of time. Status of the transport vehicles? He demanded into his communicator. Compromised, came the staticky reply. Uzumaki's clones have disabled too. The third is still operational but cut off from the main entrance. Kabuto's mind raced through alternatives, discarding and reformulating plans with clinical efficiency. Prepare escape route C. We'll proceed with minimal escort. Priority is securing the sample. He glanced at the portable containment unit, now being loaded into a specialized carrying case. Everything else is expendable, including Anko Midarashi. She had served her purpose. If recapturing her proved too costly, he would simply eliminate her, a significant loss of research potential, but an acceptable sacrifice given what he'd already harvested. As for Naruto Uzumaki, the failure to capture him was disappointing but not catastrophic. The chakra bridge connecting him to Anko was deteriorating now that she was free of the primary containment system. Without proper equipment to stabilize it, the connection would eventually dissolve completely. But the harmonized sample in the portable unit would provide years of research material. It wasn't the complete victory he planned, but it was enough to justify a strategic withdrawal. "Sir," one of the technicians pointed at a security monitor showing a corridor 2 levels above. "It's Uchiha Sasuke. He's breached the upper laboratories." Kabuto's eyes narrowed behind his glasses. Sasuke's presence complicated matters significantly. Of all the potential opponents, the last Uchiha knew his techniques most intimately, had, in fact, witnessed many of Kabuto's most innovative adaptations firsthand during their time with Orochimaru. Change of plans, he decided abruptly. "We take escape route F instead. It's longer but avoids the upper levels entirely." As his team hurriedly adjusted their preparations, Kabuto allowed himself one final glance at the monitor showing the facility's main laboratory, the shattered containment tank, the bodies of his guards, the conspicuous absence of his primary subject. "Well played, Anko-san," he murmured, genuine professional appreciation coloring his tone. But the game isn't over yet. Naruto tore through the facility's main entrance like a force of nature, golden chakra cloaking his body as he plowed through successive security checkpoints. Guards fell before him, not from lethal force but from precisely calibrated strikes that neutralized without killing, a distinction that required enormous control given the raw power flowing through his system. "Naruto!" Sakura's voice crackled through the communication device in his ear. "We've breached the northeastern quadrant. Heading for the lower levels now. What's your status?" "Inside," he replied tersely, pausing at a junction where corridors branched in 3 directions. "The power disruption worked, but systems are coming back online. Security is scattered but regrouping. Any sign of Anko?" Naruto closed his eyes briefly, focusing on the connection that had guided him this far. It felt different now, stronger but less stable, like a bridge swaying in high winds. "She's free," he realized aloud, eyes snapping open. "She's broken out of whatever was containing her." Through their connection, he sensed Anko moving upward through the facility, leaving chaos in her wake. Pride swelled in his chest. Even after days of captivity and experimentation, she was fighting back with characteristic ferocity. "She's on level 2, heading for the east wing," he informed Sakura. "And she's pissed." Sakura's laugh held equal parts relief and anticipation. "Remind me never to get on her bad side. We'll converge on her position from below. You keep pushing from the top." "Roger that." and Sakura Naruto hesitated, sensing something else through the connection, a destabilization that felt wrong, dangerous. Hurry, something's happening to the chakra bridge. It's becoming unstable. On it. Sasuke's already 2 levels down. Nothing's getting in his way. The communication cut off as Naruto chose the left corridor, instinct and the pull of his connection to Anko guiding his choice. He encountered 3 more guards, dispatching them with efficient movements before they could sound additional alarms. The facility's architecture became more complex as he descended, sterile corridors giving way to laboratory spaces and specialized research areas. Evidence of hasty evacuation littered his path. Abandoned equipment, scattered documents, doors left ajar in the rush to relocate sensitive materials. Kabuto was cutting his losses, salvaging what he could while preparing to disappear. The realization sent a fresh surge of urgency through Naruto. If Kabuto escaped, they might never find him again, and whatever research he'd conducted on Anko would continue uninterrupted. A sudden explosion rocked the corridor ahead, smoke billowing from a laboratory entrance. Naruto braced himself against the wall, kunai instantly in hand as the smoke parted to reveal a figure striding through the chaos. Anko emerged like a vengeful spirit, lab coat thrown over her medical gown, weapons stolen from fallen guards clutched in her hands. Her purple hair hung damp around her face, and the visible skin of her arms showed puncture marks and medical adhesive residue. But her eyes burned with focused intensity that took his breath away. For a heartbeat, they simply stared at each other across 30 feet of debris-strewn corridor, the reality of their reunion momentarily overwhelming the urgency of their situation. Then Anko's lips curved in that familiar half-smile that never failed to make his heart stutter. "Took you long enough, husband." The casual greeting, so quintessentially Anko in its understated emotion, broke the spell. Naruto crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides, gathering her against him with enough force to lift her feet from the floor. "Are you okay?" he demanded, eyes scanning her for injuries even as his arms refused to loosen their hold. "I've had better weeks," she replied dryly, though her hands clutched his jacket with equal desperation. "But I'm functional, and extremely motivated to get the hell out of here." Naruto set her down gently, reluctant to break contact but aware of their precarious position. "Sakura and the others are converging from below. They have the medical countermeasure for whatever Kabuto did to reactivate your seal." Anko's expression sharpened. "It's not just reactivation. He's been using the seal fragments as a conduit, harvesting chakra from both of us through the connection." Her hand rose to her neck, where the phantom pain of Orochimaru's mark still lingered. "And I think he's succeeded in collecting what he needed. He was preparing to transport me when everything went dark." "The electromagnetic pulse," Naruto confirmed. "Your idea, if you recall. I had a good student." Her smirk faded as quickly as it had appeared. "But we have a bigger problem. Kabuto won't risk direct confrontation now that his plan is compromised. He'll be executing an escape strategy, and taking his research with him." As if to punctuate her assessment, a distant rumble shook the facility. Not an explosion, but the distinctive sound of machinery engaging. "Transport Bay," Anko identified immediately. "Southern Quadrant. He's making his move." Naruto tapped his communication device. "Sasuke, Sakura. Kabuto's attempting extraction through the southern transport bay. Can you intercept?" Static answered him for several seconds before Sasuke's voice cut through, tense with exertion. "Negative. We're pinned down by some kind of enhanced guards. Chakra modifications similar to Curse Seal variants. Shikamaru's shadows are barely holding them." "What about Sai?" Naruto pressed. "Securing our exit route." Sakura's voice this time, breathless and strained. "Naruto, these aren't normal opponents. They're like living experiments, human but not entirely. Be careful." Anko's expression darkened. "More of Kabuto's test subjects. He's been continuing Orochimaru's work on human modification." The implications sent icy fingers down Naruto's spine. What had Kabuto been planning for Anko? For both of them, if his initial extraction attempt had succeeded. "We need to stop him," Naruto decided, golden chakra flaring brighter around his form. "Now. Before he disappears with whatever research he's salvaging." Anko nodded grimly, checking her stolen weapons. "I know the fastest route to the transport bay." But Naruto, she hesitated, something vulnerable flashing across her features. "The chakra bridge between us is destabilizing. I can feel it unraveling. When it collapses completely, there could be backlash." The admission struck Naruto like a physical blow. He'd sensed the instability but hadn't wanted to acknowledge the potential consequences. A chakra bridge of the magnitude Kabuto had created wouldn't simply dissolve. It would tear apart, potentially causing severe damage to both connected parties. All the more reason to find Sakura quickly, he replied, voice steady despite the fear coiling in his gut. She has the countermeasure ready. Anko studied his face for a moment, seeing through his attempt at confidence with the ease of someone who knew him intimately. Lead with your left, she said simply, the non sequitur making sense only to them. Their private code for I trust your plan, even if it's risky. Naruto squeezed her hand once, hard. Watch your six, he responded. Their code for don't you dare sacrifice yourself. Together, they turned toward the southern corridor, movements automatically synchronizing as they fell into the combat rhythm they'd developed over months of joint training. Despite her ordeal, Anko moved with fluid precision, each step measured and economical. Naruto adjusted his pace to accommodate her, positioning himself to absorb the brunt of any unexpected attacks. They encountered scattered resistance, guards more intent on evacuation than engagement, easily neutralized with coordinated strikes. The deeper they penetrated into the southern quadrant, the more signs of hasty departure surrounded them. Equipment ripped from wall mountings, data storage devices smashed to prevent retrieval, entire research stations abandoned mid-procedure. Kabuto was executing a scorched earth protocol, destroying anything he couldn't take with him. When they finally reached the transport bay doors, they found them sealed with a complex locking mechanism actively cycling through security protocols, a delaying tactic designed to buy precious minutes for escape. Stand back, Naruto ordered, already forming a Rasengan in his palm. The whirling sphere of chakra expanded to massive proportions, wind element infusing the technique with cutting potential that would slice through the reinforced door like paper. But before he could launch the attack, Anko staggered, a strangled gasp escaping her as she clutched at her neck. The connection between them flared with sudden, searing intensity. A bridge on fire, collapsing under its own instability. Anko! Naruto let the Rasengan dissipate, catching her as her knees buckled. The pain hit him a heartbeat later, radiating outward from his core in waves of burning agony. It felt like something essential was being torn from his chakra network, fibers stretching beyond their limits before snapping back with whiplash force. Through watering eyes, he saw identical pain etched across Anko's features. It's breaking, she managed between clenched teeth. The bridge. Kabuto must have triggered some kind of failsafe. Understanding crashed through Naruto's pain-fogged mind. Of course Kabuto would have an insurance policy. A way to weaponize the connection if his primary plan failed. With the bridge destabilizing naturally due to Anko's escape, he'd simply accelerated the process, turning their connection into a final attack. Sakura, Naruto gasped into his communicator, fighting to remain conscious as another wave of pain crashed through him. Transport Bay need the countermeasure now, static answered him, punctuated by distant sounds of combat. Whether his message had gotten through was impossible to determine. Anko's body convulsed against him, her breathing shallow and ragged. Through their deteriorating connection, Naruto felt the curse seal fragments in her system reacting to the destabilization, attempting to draw more power to sustain themselves. The process was tearing her apart from the inside. Desperate innovation sparked through Naruto's consciousness. He couldn't wait for Sakura and the specialized countermeasure. He needed to stabilize the bridge immediately, or at least slow its collapse until help arrived. With trembling hands, he formed a modified hand sign, not a standard jutsu configuration, but a variation he developed while learning to control Kurama's chakra. It was designed to balance energy flow between two systems, creating a regulated exchange rather than the chaotic swirl currently burning through their connection. What are you doing? Anko whispered, recognizing that he was attempting something dangerous from the intensity of his expression. Buying time, he replied, placing one palm against her neck where the curse seal had once resided, and the other against his own stomach, where the nine-tailed seal created a spiral pattern visible even through his clothing. This is going to hurt. Before she could protest, Naruto channeled chakra through the hand sign, creating a regulated circuit between them. Rather than fighting the bridge's collapse, he redirected its energy, cycling it through his own seal matrix where Kurama's presence provided a stabilizing influence. The effect was immediate and excruciating, like rerouting a river of fire through already burned flesh. Naruto gritted his teeth against the scream as his system absorbed the brunt of the backlash. But it was working. The wild fluctuations in Anko's chakra began to steady, the cursed seal fragments finding equilibrium as the nine-tailed seal imposed order on the chaos. Naruto, Anko gasped, eyes wide as she realized what he was doing. Stop. You're taking too much of the damage yourself. He couldn't respond, all his concentration focused on maintaining the delicate balance of energy between them. Sweat poured down his face, his breathing becoming increasingly labored as his system strained under the pressure. A distant part of him registered the transport bay doors sliding open, revealing an empty loading dock. They were too late. Kabuto had escaped, taking his research and whatever sample he'd harvested with him, but Naruto couldn't spare attention for that now. The modified technique was failing, his chakra reserves depleting rapidly as he fought to contain the backlash. Black spots danced at the edges of his vision, unconsciousness threatening to claim him. The last thing he registered before darkness swept over him was Sakura's voice calling his name, and Anko's arms tightening around him with desperate strength. Then nothing. Consciousness returned to Naruto in fragments. The antiseptic smell of hospital sheets, the soft beep of monitoring equipment, whispered conversations just beyond clear hearing. He struggled toward awareness, fingers twitching against starch fabric as he fought to open leaden eyelids. "He's waking up," someone murmured, Sakura's voice, clinical yet tinged with unmistakable relief. "About time," came another voice, rough-edged and achingly familiar. "I was beginning to think he planned to sleep through his own rescue mission debrief." Anko. She was alive. She was here. Naruto's eyes snapped open, immediately finding her figure seated beside his hospital bed. She looked different from when he'd last seen her, clean, dressed in standard Konoha shinobi attire, her purple hair pulled back in its usual spiky ponytail. But shadows lingered beneath her eyes, and new tension lines marked the corners of her mouth. "Welcome back, hero," she said, voice softening despite the sardonic greeting. Her hand found his on the blanket, fingers intertwining with careful pressure. "Nice of you to join us. How long?" Naruto rasped, throat dry from disuse. 3 days, Sakura answered, moving into his field of vision from the other side of the bed. Her medical attire was rumpled, suggesting she'd been keeping long hours at his bedside. "You nearly burned out your entire chakra network with that improvised technique." Memory flooded back. The collapsing bridge, the desperate attempt to stabilize it, the overwhelming pain as his system absorbed the backlash. "Did it work?" he asked, eyes finding Anko's again, searching for signs of the connection that had linked them so intensely. Something sad and grateful mingled in her expression. "The countermeasure worked," she confirmed. "Sakura and Tsunade administered it about 30 seconds after you passed out. The bridge is gone, along with the reactivated seal fragments." Relief and loss warred in Naruto's chest. The connection had been dangerous, unsustainable, a trap of Kabuto's making, yet part of him mourned its absence. For a brief time, they had shared something beyond normal human communication, a direct line to each other's essence. "And Kabuto?" he asked, already knowing the answer from the frustrated tension radiating from both women. "Gone," Sakura confirmed grimly. With whatever research and samples he managed to salvage. NBU tracking teams lost his trail at the border of Rain Country. "He'll resurface," Anko added, a steely note entering her voice. "And when he does, we'll be ready." Naruto squeezed her hand, comforted by the resolute determination beneath her words. They had failed to capture Kabuto, failed to prevent his escape with potentially dangerous research, but they had succeeded in the mission's primary objective. Anko was safe, free, and herself again. "The others?" he asked, mind turning to the team that had risked everything for this rescue. "All fine," Sakura assured him. Sasuke sustained minor injuries from those enhanced guards, but nothing serious. Shikamaru and Sai escaped without a scratch. Even Orochimaru kept his part of the bargain, providing crucial intelligence without betraying us, though he vanished immediately afterward. Naruto nodded, unsurprised by his former enemy's quick departure. Orochimaru's assistance had always been a matter of calculated self-interest rather than genuine alliance. "And the village?" he pressed, remembering the political chaos they'd left behind, the revelation of his secret marriage, the emergency council session, the potential implications for his future as Hokage. A rare smile crossed Anko's face. "Surprisingly supportive. Turns out having your secret wife kidnapped by terrorists generates a lot of public sympathy. The village elders are still processing, but the general population has been overwhelmingly positive. Ino says you two are Konoha's favorite romantic drama right now," Sakura added with a smirk. "There's talk of throwing you an official wedding reception once you're recovered." The absurdity of it, going from desperate secrecy to public celebration in the span of a week, startled a laugh from Naruto's dry throat, triggering a coughing fit that Sakura quickly addressed with a cup of water. "So we're out in the open now," he murmured once he could speak again. "No more hiding." "No more hiding," Anko confirmed, something vulnerable and fierce dancing in her eyes. "Though I'm keeping the cabin. Everyone needs somewhere to escape occasionally." "Agreed." Naruto shifted in the hospital bed, wincing as healing muscles protested the movement. "How are you really?" "Medically speaking," Anko's expression clouded slightly. "Recovering. Tsunade says there's no permanent damage from what Kabuto did." The Curcio fragments are completely neutralized. But she hesitated, unconsciously rubbing her neck where phantom pain still occasionally flared. There will be monitoring. Regular checkups. Kabuto was harvesting something from both of us, some kind of harmonic chakra sample. We don't fully understand what he intended to do with it. The implications hung heavy in the air. Whatever Kabuto had escaped with represented potential danger not just to them, but potentially to Konoha and beyond. His obsessive research into chakra manipulation had always pushed ethical and practical boundaries. With a sample of harmonized Ninetales chakra, the possibilities became even more concerning. We'll face that when it comes, Naruto decided, refusing to let future threats overshadow the present victory. Together. No more separate missions for a while. Kakashi already approved joint assignments for the next 3 months, Sakura informed them, professional demeanor softening with obvious approval. He said, and I quote, "If they're going to be insufferably in love, they might as well do it on the same battlefield." Anko snorted, the sound so familiar and characteristic that warmth spread through Naruto's chest. This was her, acerbic, unfiltered, refusing to be sentimental even in moments that warranted it. This was the woman he'd fallen for, the partner he'd chosen despite complications and consequences. "I should check your vitals," Sakura announced, already reaching for monitoring equipment. "And then I'm ordering you both to rest. Actual rest. Not whatever you two consider restful activities." The pointed look she gave them brought color to Naruto's cheeks, though Anko merely smirked, unapologetic as always. "Doctor's orders," Anko agreed with exaggerated innocence. "We'll be on our best behavior." Sakura rolled her eyes, clearly unconvinced, but proceeded with her examination with brisk efficiency. When she finished, she stepped back with professional satisfaction. "You're healing well. Another day of observation, then you can be discharged. Provided you follow the recovery protocol I'll be drafting." "Thanks, Sakura," Naruto said, infusing the simple acknowledgement with genuine gratitude that went far beyond medical care. "For everything." She understood, her expression softening momentarily before she reassumed her professional demeanor. "I'll be back in 4 hours. Try not to do anything strenuous before then." As the door closed behind her, leaving them alone for the first time since the rescue, silence settled between Naruto and Anko, not uncomfortable, but weighted with everything they'd experienced separately and together. "So," Anko began, her tone deliberately casual though her grip on his hand remained firm. "Secrets out. The village knows. The council knows. The whole world probably knows by now that the future Hokage is married to Orochimaru's former student." Naruto studied her face, reading the subtle vulnerability beneath her sardonic delivery. "Having second thoughts? About marrying you?" "No." Her answer came without hesitation, surprising both of them with its immediacy. "About the public circus our life is about to become? Possibly. We could always run away," he suggested, only half joking. "Find a nice quiet village where no one's heard of the Ninetales or the legendary snake Sannin. Open a ramen stand." The absurd image drew a genuine laugh from Anko, a sound too rarely heard and all the more precious for its scarcity. "You'd last about 3 days before challenging the local troublemakers to reform their ways," she countered. "And I'd probably be arrested for threatening the health inspector." "Fair point." Naruto shifted again, this time managing to sit up slightly against his pillows. "Looks like we're stuck with being public figures." "Seems that way." Anko's thumb traced absent patterns across his knuckles, her expression turning contemplative. "But at least we don't have to pretend we're just colleagues anymore. Do you know how hard it was not to kiss you after joint missions? About as hard as it was not to brag about being married to the scariest special jonin in Konoha." Naruto replied with a grin. "I had to bite my tongue whenever someone mentioned your name." "Scariest? Please." "I'm delightful," she deadpanned, the familiar banter easing some of the lingering tension from her shoulders. "Terrifyingly delightful," he amended, earning another of those rare smiles that still made his heart skip after months of marriage. Anko leaned forward, her free hand coming up to trace the whisker marks on his cheek with gentle fingers. "I felt you," she said quietly, the sudden shift in tone catching him off guard. "Through whatever Kabuto created between us, I felt everything you were feeling. Your rage when you found out I'd been taken, your determination during the rescue, your willingness to sacrifice yourself to protect me." Naruto swallowed hard, unprepared for the raw emotion in her normally guarded expression. "I felt you too," he admitted. "Fighting even when they thought they'd broken you, never giving up. It was like having another pulse inside my chest," she continued, struggling to articulate something beyond normal experience. "Terrifying and incredible. Do you miss it?" he asked, voicing the question that had lingered since he'd awakened to find their connection severed. Anko considered this with characteristic honesty. "Parts of it. The immediacy. The certainty. Her eyes met his directly. But it wasn't real, not in the way that matters. It was Kabuto's creation, not ours. And what we have is real, Naruto finished for her, understanding completely. Exactly? She leaned closer, her forehead touching his in a gesture more intimate than a kiss. Hard one. Complicated. Sometimes messy. But ours. Outside the hospital window, Konoha continued its daily rhythm. Shinobi leaping across rooftops, civilians navigating market streets, the steady pulse of a village that had weathered countless storms and emerged stronger for them. Somewhere in the distance, Kabuto moved with his stolen research, a threat deferred rather than eliminated. And closer at hand, the political and personal adjustments to their now public marriage waited to be navigated. But in this moment, with Anko's forehead pressed against his and their breathing synchronizing without any supernatural bridge to connect them, Naruto found perfect clarity. Whatever came next, whatever threats emerged, whatever challenges arose, they would face it together, not as secret partners but as acknowledged equals, their strength drawn from choice rather than circumstance. Ours, he agreed, the simple word holding everything they'd fought for and everything they still defended. And for now, that was enough.